I heard you all say I am a monster. But I don't care if you speak ill of me. Thank you for speaking ill of me behind my back. I am only becoming stronger and stronger, like the firefly shines incomparably. You all say I am a monster. But I don't care if you speak ill of me. Thank you for speaking ill of me behind my back. I am only becoming stronger and stronger, like the firefly shines incomparably.
Way less. My crew the best. crew the best. Yo crew way less. My crew the best.
Seen the light in the dark, but it's been a while. And just remember, it's the heat from a heart beating next to mine. But I surrender, 'cause everything I touch seems to crumble, and everyone I love leaves me broken down. Everybody runs when they see me now. So I put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm death in the land of the living. Still all the energy when we get connected. Your good is done when you have my full attention. I'll take you away into a dark dimension, and you can't get out. I never thought I'd be like this. Further down into the deep abyss I'll go. Stay off my radar 'cause I never miss you. Everybody knows. So I put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm dead in the land of the living. So I put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm dead in the land of the living.
Welcome in, everybody, to Olympus Smite League. My name is Heleno here with Snatty and the Wolfie Pup, our lovely spectator, bringing you some Athens action. We've got the crew versus KWM. Very excited to get into what should be a good Athens set. How are you feeling today, Snatty?
I'm feeling good. I'm really excited to see this. Both these teams are 1-1, so this, is a set to kind of make some noise here.
Absolutely. As we start kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of the OSL season, week 3, we're about a third of the way through our 7-week schedule. You come out of this 2-1, you start to feel pretty good about yourself. You come out 1-2, you got some work to do. So an important week for both teams, and we are flying through picks and bans. Thor, Kuzenbo, Hachiman, Thoth, AMC, and Cuckoo all taken away. Anything catch your eye here?
The Kuzenbo ban, especially with this Karen first pick, Scapesso or Digits on the other team, his two favorite gods are Kuzenbo and Karen. Banning one of them, taking the Karen first pick. The rest of the bans kind of in these drafts look pretty meta, but that's a very targeted kind of statement against the support here.
Yeah, excellent call out there that Digits does love those characters, and forcing him to play something a little bit less in the god pool. Bologna getting
Roma
covered by Super Death Fang will
Warriors,
get locked
to
in there through
battle!
the Soul Lane, along with an on her, another premier ADC Comfort taken nice and early.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of pressure right now in solo and in duo. This Karen, we're going to assume it's going to go support, could go mid, so a little bit of flex potential. We'll see. Definitely want to try to find a way to combat that early game in solo and duo that's already starting to mount up. So we'll see kind of what the crew decides to look for here. Still a lot of really strong characters up. Osiris is up, Vimana is up, as a Sun Wukong hover
Wukong
begins to
Hover
come
will
in.
be interesting if it does come out here.
Ooh, that's
Character
a
that's kind of
statement.
Yeah, character that's kind of that like
Me
fourth or
booty is
fifth
the
soul
best
laner in a lot
booty.
of people's minds. Definitely still good, but not as favored as some of the Bologna's, Osiris's of the world. But
Yeah,
Sobek taken alongside with it, so it means his Charon's
absolutely.
going into the mid lane.
Karen's going into the mid, so a lot of tankiness with your top three here, even though the Karen's going to be damaged, still as the Guardian. Sobek is kind of like probably the best support for just pure fighting. So we'll see what type of
Winning or
ADC the
losing
crew
doesn't
matches it
matter.
up
We
with.
all
Definitely
shall
looking to kind
return
of
to nature
combat
in
that
the
on
end.
her. And now Ardio picked up in that duo lane. So not really the most meta picks, with the Sun Wukong, with the Ardio, Karen mid, you could even argue, but definitely a kind of steer towards comfort for this game one.
Yeah, Urdu has some interesting matchups, has some good lockdown for that Sobek and for the Charon. Just a lot of characters that don't enjoy being crippled.
Yeah,
Shockingly, Cripple's pretty good in Smite game. Urdu slowly making her way back into that meta. I know she's peeked her head into support, peeked her head into solo a little bit as well.
yep.
Soonest one's going over to support there though with the Bologna. And bands rolling through Camazot's, Dodgy, and Thanatos
A
junglers
lot of
on the
junglers.
mind.
Yeah, a lot of junglers on the minds here, and once you start banning away some of these, you're kind of wondering like, what jungler do you really want to pick at this point? You look at a Karen, Sobek, Wukong. I mean, that's probably the least revealing top three for a jungler to actually dive. Definitely gonna have to get into the bag a little bit. Camazot's a really good character, just kind of into everything. Dodgy, similar in effect. Thanatos also similar in effect with this execute. So these jungle picks are definitely gonna be probably the defining factor for both of these drafts as a Tiamat ban rounds out the 10th and final ban.
Yeah, assuming here the KWM's gonna want to be holding that jungle pick for last. If I saw that top three, I don't think I would have a clue what to play into
Yeah,
it.
me neither.
Imagine they'll be picking up their mid laner here. I mean, although kind of premier mid laners off the board, that Tiamat, Thoth, Cuckoo, a lot of things still open. We've seen Vulcan peeking his head through. We've still seen a lot
Hmm.
of people playing Merlin, playing MLF. A lot of
Yeah.
options to go here. What would you prefer to see KWM pick in mid?
Honestly, I think it kind of depends on what they want to do in the jungle. I would like if they are to run something like a Merlin, make sure you have some more burn in the jungle and just play to kill these frontliners as they begin to get into the fight. You could go the Vulcan angle, just play for some secure on objectives, also still having a lot of burn with that. So it's sort of a stylistic thing. I do always like the idea of just picking Merlin though, having like safety, having good damage shred and burn, but instead Chiron going to be hovered,
You only
potentially
hit
running a quad
what
physical
you
comp,
aim at.
and that Chiron will end up being locked in. So magical jungler,
The
potentially
moon
maybe
will
physical jungler, we'll
purify
have to
this
see.
land.
As Tsukiyomi is hovered and locked in for presumably danger in the jungle on the crew's side.
Yeah, Ardio is a character that you can sometimes get away with building a damage item on in support, so could potentially see that quad phase relying on their Ardio to pump out some of that magical damage. Also, and Charon very good into double hunter, so a little bit surprised to see them still go to that with the Charon being selected here. It is a mid instead of support, so it's
Yeah,
definitely easier to kill, but that too is such a good ability into that double
absolutely.
hunter. The
Hmm.
attack speed slow, the shielding all so annoying. Tsukiyomi going to be the selection of choice here for the jungle of the crew. There's not a ton of backline peel here. I mean, it's really just going to be the stun from Ardio. I'm curious
Yeah.
to see how that Tsukiyomi does.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like this whole crew draft is just dive. You have a Karen diving, a Wukong, Tsukiyomi just full committing with his ult, Rama going with the snipes. Definitely not a lot of peel for this Kittens draft. This jungle pick is kind of going to determine really everything here, but so much dive again. Yeah, not a lot of peel with this RDO. I guess Chiron can like self peel and on her as well. Probably better than most backliners, but Tsukiyomi's damage for the most part unpeelable. Karen, wave, you're gonna have to deal with that. So definitely a lot of question marks that Kids and Mittens are gonna have to get around if they want to survive these fights.
Absolutely, and I think an important thing here is Tsukiyomi regaining that knockup immunity on his two makes his matchup
Helps a
into
lot.
Chiron so much better. It used to be
Yeah.
just giddy up past the Tsukiyomi and be a-okay. Not the case anymore.
Listen
And
to
we
my
see the
words.
Hunbats get hovered and locked in here for
Yeah.
KWM, that counter initiation style of jungler. We see
Mhm.
bots starting to get a lot of popularity, actually being played pretty often in OSL this season. I think there's been a
Yep.
lot of jungle focused bans, and bots just always seems like he does his job.
Yeah, and going the quad fizz, with that four kittens, honestly, Hunbats haven't seen too much of it this season. Definitely is still an okay pick. Knockup immunity is decent, into the Sun Wukong in some, various like kind of situations, but Quad physical, do you really feel that great about that when you have a Wukong who can really easily build hybrid and just go a couple Fizz defense items? Karen can easily slap a breastplate onto his build. Danger on the Tsukiyomi will most likely go a Void Shield, a Glad Shield, or something along those lines just to give himself also some tankiness. I'm not too sure. I know the Hunbat's pick, they kind of just needed a jungler a lot was banned, but it doesn't really give me the satisfaction of like rounding out this draft. Though I'm not sure I had a pick that, would have done it at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm not sure if there was like that magical cure-all pick for KWM here. I am concerned. Wukong, as you mentioned, loves building a couple damage items, and that build could very easily see, 2 or 3 Fizz defense items and just some damage out of that Wukong and be pretty much immortal on that character.
Yeah,
Anti-heal going to be a problem here for KWM. No Divine into a comp that does have some kind of sneaky self-sustain built in. Could potentially see some characters building into some heavy lifesteal as a result. And I'm curious how they're going to survive this dive into what could realistically be 4 semi-tanky characters
yeah.
diving at them.
No, absolutely. And they've got a Rama, who's probably going to be hitting some snipes as well. So there's a lot of question marks with that. One thing I'm also a little bit worried about with this Kittens draft is you look at Hunbats as this, quintessential old character pulling a lot of beads and obviously fearing a lot of people. Not that much beads burn on this Kitten's draft. You've got a little bit with the on her potentially. I know Bologna can get rid of Magi's really easily, but Artie is a very committal character if she wants to force stuns and whatnot. And into this crew draft, that's really, really risky. Electing not to go beads on this Artio as well is definitely this is definitely like a little bit of a tricky situation. How kind of are Kittens going to play this early game? Because also when you're going this quad physical type of draft, generally speaking, once the game gets 30, 40 minutes, that physical defense is usually a little bit too difficult to overcome. And, from the crew's draft. So they're kind of needing to win it early. And with the Hunbats, with the Chiron, I'm just not so sure that's going to really work.
Yeah, when I see Ardio, still in my mind, Ardio is a character that just loves immobile backliners. That
Yeah,
stun. When you have to beads Ardio 3, she feels
mhm,
horrible to play against. But
absolutely.
Chiron and
Yeah.
Rama don't have to do that, and Tsukiyomi has a decent option as well. Can just use that second ability to stun out the cripple if he's allowed, or stun out the stun, excuse me, if he's allowed to. So
Yeah.
not too much of a concern there. Also, if Ardio's hitting Tsukiyomi to start the fight, something's probably gone wrong already anyways.
Definitely. Something I love that I'm seeing here already is we see
Minions
Storm
have
is going into
spawned.
physical defense. I would have liked to see him rush the Sovereignty. Instead, it looks like he might be rushing a Breastplate, could be a Contagion rush, so a little bit weird, but still just going some type of Fizzy. Hopefully, I'd like to see like maybe a Breastplate into a Sovereignty, into a relic, anti-attack speed Relic Dagger. I just like the idea, though, that he's building Fizz defense right away.
Yeah, I love seeing that early breastplate coming out of the Sobek here. And a little early scrapping in this duo lane. Set the tone nice and early. The horrific force out there from Digits. A nice
We
win
get
and a
Pluck
good
Pick, yeah.
plug
Now they do
back
have
in.
Horrific. Yes, it'll be
Does
Horrific for Horrific.
does have the dash available, so we'll be okay over in that duo lane. Take a look at starters across the rest of the board. Anything catch your eye?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, it's interesting to know Tricky did go Death's Toll, so he's going more of that Death's Temper build. That's pretty new. I love Garrett going this Mannequin's anti-auto attack speed into 3 auto attackers, potentially 4 if you want to count Hunbats as 1. Really makes a lot of sense. Generally just a good item to build, but it's just a convenient little benefit. Besides that, though, starters look pretty normal.
Yeah, I also like that it gives you some shred on objectives here with the Charon mid. Does a lot of things very well. Objective shred is
Definitely
not one
yeah.
of them. But going that Mannequin's Mace will give you the ability to do some Fire Giants down the line. So some smart build planning here coming out from the crew.
Yeah, and we see Danger already starting to rotate over to this duo side. We see Kano going over to solo. I really like this. I think you look at this Ardio, you look at this Sobek, these are 2 characters that can definitely potentially get picked pretty easily, whereas Wukong, Bologna, maybe not too much. Obviously, Kano's coming over here just to secure some camps, but I think, especially with both of these supports not having beads, Hunbats into the Sobek or, juxtaposing the Tsukiyomi into the Ardio, there's a lot of pick potential in this duo lane either way you slice it.
Absolutely something to keep an eye on. Ardia without beads,
Bit of a
always
fight.
going to be a potential target. Tsukiyomi taking on some scrapping here with
This is good for him.
Ex-Kano. And
Yeah,
so
and
far,
Danger's
Danger
never losing these.
getting the better end of it early on. Just force out the two for kind of no reason, but Kano beads it, even though he was a mile away. So beads down for the Hunbats. A little game one jitters perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this game, starting a little bit late, probably just kind of antsy to get into it. Your 10th pick, you're picking something that, honestly, again, Hunbats, decent pick here. I'm not sure you love picking Hunbats here, so, you don't want to go down 0-1 to start it off.
Oh, kind of surprised that the bots opts for the beads here, but purple buff invade getting looked at by KWM. Storm doing his best to try and secure it, and will secure it. Crew defend their purple buff successfully. Well done by them. Going
Yeah.
back to the beads on this Hunbots, I'm a bit surprised that's his relic of choice here. Nothing on Crew's comp screams to me I need beads first, except for, really, I guess, Sobek Pluck?
Yeah, I mean, there's like little instances, but he could probably get away with just going Blink first. To me, that just says, Kano's really not expecting to make a lot of noise in the early game, and if he does, it's going to be counter initiation rather than initiation on his own side. We see another dual lane fight. The crew securing that purple buff earlier was definitely a little bit of a fluke. Tricky did mess up his impale, but they do secure the protection camp. We see Kano doing this Naga on the right side. Again, him going Blink, or not going Blink, excuse me, means he probably won't be looking for anything, and yeah, he's just going to walk away.
Yeah, it does seem, at least early on, both teams content to just sit and farm it out. If this does go into that 20-30 minute mark even paced, which team do you favor in those late game team fights?
I'll never bet against a team that has non-quad physical. I think quad physical really causes a lot of problems. It's really easy to build into for tanks. And, again, the thing with the screw draft is Danger can build a defense item. Clutch, on this Wukong obviously will. Gabe can 100% go a breastplate. Now, it looks like he might be rushing the Chronos Pennant, so we'll see if he still decides to do that. But it definitely is at least an option. There's just so much tankiness that's very easy to afford. And once, you have a couple of defense items, just really on your team, and it's all situated towards one damage type, the fights become really easy. You're allowed to make more mistakes because you can just take more damage. So I like the crew, as this game goes later and later.
I agree here, though. Some interesting things coming out of the mid lane. Claw actually opting for that Jotun's first item instead of the Transcendent. Kano getting caught out in the jungle just a little bit, but just some poke. No full commit this early to the Hunbats, but that Jotun early,
I like it.
symbolizes that you want to fight a little bit earlier in this game, which going into something like the Charon that does need a little bit of time to scale up, I think that's a good decision here to try and, even if you're not killing the Charon, force him to give up those mid camps, feel uncomfortable stepping up to neutrals, try and get a lead in mid. Clutch has the ult, that's ult comes out, but he will get up into that SummerSlam Cloud and be okay. Thought he's considering jumping onto the
Considering a little bit, yeah.
Sam, I know you're crazy. Let's not get that crazy that early though. First, fear no evil to the solo lane. Gets the ultimate out of Wukong, but nothing else. Blue buff is secured by the crew. Good rotation by Danger to make sure that blue buff gets.
Yeah, definitely a difficult gank on the Sun Wukong. I would have liked to see Clutch ult right away once he saw that Hunbats come over, because things almost got a little bit dicey there. The blown ult was just a little bit too late. It's really difficult to kind of chain CC the Hunbats ult into a blown ult there, but fortunately for Clutch, he does end up getting out. Securing the blue buff as well means that this lane is going to be pretty dead, which, ultimately I think is what the crew is pretty happy with this early pressure being put on. But I really do like this Jotun's Rush, as Claw gets a really nice cleanse right there and avoids any damage. I like this Jotun's Rush because without needing to stack Transcendence in the traditional way we're all used to with Lastits and whatnot, you're allowed to build a damage item first, kind of have a smoother early game, then build into your stacking Transcendence item a little bit later.
Or scrapping over in this duo lane. Ardia looking good so far. Has been able to get that Prophetic Cloak online nice and early. Has a very easy way to stack that. So checks out there in the duo lane is that breastplate for the Sobek. Lots of cooldown, MP5, and that physical protection. nice and early for him. Expect to still probably see a Thieves this game, but I mean, there's a chance he just goes Sovereignty and just, I'm not scared of Ardio.
Yeah, definitely, and you know, there's a lot of pressure riding on this Kano. Thinking about these mid camps, decides to back up a little bit, but there might be a fight coming out here.
Good ultimate by the Tsukiyomi, immunes the Fear No Evil, but caught in the middle of both. The Chiron ult hits all 3 marks. Might be looking for one more game. Ethan, 1 HP, does not get out. 2 kills for the Chiron to start the game, and that Jotun's Rush comes up huge. The Chiron is swinging early.
Yeah, Claw had a great little wrap run right there. Tricky gets a little bit of damage off on him, but he should be okay, and Digits also should be okay here. Claw had a little wrap run while they were on those mid camps. Kano definitely just kind of sitting around flirting around that line, making them not secure those mid camps, then giving Claw the time and space to get a rotation gank. Normally you don't want your Chiron ganking a fight, but when cooldowns are expended, now level 11 on this Chiron at 8 minutes, you're going to feel okay with that trade, and Claw definitely capitalized. Great ultimates there. And a 2-0 lead for Kittens, and a 2k deficit now for the crew. Kind of just spawned out of nowhere from that fight.
Yeah, a great double kill for your pressure mid lane pick. Claw has got him feeling great. And now the question for KWM is, what do you do with this lead? You got your Chiron ahead. He's nice beefy mid laner now, has that Transcendence really early. Where do you push this lead? Is it just making sure you get neutral camps? Do you try and force a Gold Fury? Where do you like to see KWM go with this?
You definitely want to get those neutrals. I'm looking at Gabe Ethan not having beads for 90 as maybe a potential target, but we have seen in this solo lane, HD Clutch get some pressure put on him. He doesn't have a committed defense item just yet. Super Death Fang is going into an Executioner Kittens here. Kano has shown that he's not extremely afraid of just trying to dump an ultimate and kill this Sun Wukong. I think they almost got the kill if they just timed their ults a little bit better together, so we might see some solo action. It seems both junglers are a little bit kind of hesitant to go over to duo. We're not really any rotations into the actual lane just yet in this game.
Absolutely, and that Fear No Evil is back up. Has a 50-second window to maybe look for something on the Chiron here, though. Could potentially be caught still immune by that ult without the blink. Won't be as, you know, not going to be sneaking up on the Chiron more than likely. So gonna have to expect Gabe to kind of hang out in his tower and not fight for those neutrals all too hard until those beats are back up. It does appear to be the case. They're actually, looks like Crew's getting the better end of these mid camps despite their mid laner not having beats. So that's a victory for the Crew.
You know, absolutely. And again, I think the Crew, you know, getting behind 2-0 early is definitely not a great feeling, as Kano is thinking about looking over to solo lane rotation, force the ult Death Fang that is, you know, from HD Clutch, but we see Storm kind of around the area, spotted out the Hunbats, and Clutch should be okay. This deficit obviously doesn't feel great for the Crew, but again, you're thinking about this comp, you're thinking about the defense that you're going to be able to get online, and if the Kittens don't run away with this early game, as they're beginning to, but it's not cause for complete panic just yet, you definitely still have a very good fighting chance. Interesting to note, Storm is likely going into the Thebes here, so no Sovereignty Rush, or, you know, delayed rush, no Relic Dagger either. Garrett's taking a lot of pressure here.
They're in a lot of pressure, but danger is here. The Tsukiyomi has the ultimate. Storm makes his way as well, but a lot of damage returns by Tricky. The on her ult was good there. You have to use the Tsukiyomi ult defensively, worried about the Hunbats coming through the jungle. It was spotted by Gabe in the mid lane. So beads and ult forced out from the Tsukiyomi. A gank attempt gone wrong there for the Crew. KWM gotta be very happy with that exchange.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, you're seeing Tricky's not really ahead in this lane right now, but just the amount of damage he's able to put out with his Impale and Spears onto Danger kind of just flipped the fight. You saw Storm go in with the Sobek ult lurking in the waters. Didn't really find any value. Horrific's still up. Could definitely look for a fight, but, you know, these junglers have been really afraid to go over to the duo side, and Danger's, you know, first rotation over there didn't look and feel too great, so I don't think we'll see a lot more duo fighting from the Crew. But this 2k deficit, you know, from an unsuccessful rotation, making Danger lose some farm, now it's a 3k deficit for the Crew. And I think some of this is quietly kind of building in the solo lane as well. Super Death Fang's definitely had the upper hand in this matchup so far.
Yeah, taking a quick look at net worth.
1,000.
1,000 lead in the solo lane and 1,000 lead in the mid lane. Everywhere else looks like they're kind of okay, but Danger bottom net worth in the game below the supports. Not what you want to see from your
Definitely
junglers.
feels rough.
The pluck onto Claw is good. No follow-up immediately close enough, so
Ooh.
it hangs onto the beads.
I
A-okay
really
there.
hate this rotation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
four
I really
members
hate
of
this
crew.
rotation from Clutch. You know, rotating over for this Bastion seems okay, but you're losing more farm to Deathfang, who's very ahead. You really don't have the objective shred with this Karen, as you mentioned. Mannequins at this point on this ROM is not going to be enough to clear out enough space for a Gold Fury when you're behind. We're going to see Clutch kind of rotate back, but now this deficit's expanding. And I mean, you know, we don't normally think of Chiron as maybe the most shredding hunter of all time, but when you have the on her, when you have a Hunbats, you definitely can do this Gold Fury if you're on Kittens with Mittens. And I want to see them look for some type of a rotation on it in the near future.
Especially with the Executioner finished, but Garrett getting jumped on here, rolls forward away
pop.
from the earlier. Here comes the rest of the team. The Tsukiyomi lands onto Tricky. The beads are good. The Hunbats bails out his ADC, and now Storm is in trouble along with Garrett. Here comes Claw from the mid lane. The snipes. Two are good, the third just off the mark, but it does not matter. A 3 for nothing. 4K down, make that a 4 for nothing. If Ethan able to clean up one, can he find a second? He can't, but he might have done enough damage to stop a Gold Fury. So a little bit late on the rotations are the mid laners, but he's done enough to stop that Gold Fury.
Great snipes from Claw, great snipes from Garrett at the beginning of the fight, but yeah, this Hunbat's definitely able to peel out his kind of backline there, get Tricky just alive for a little bit longer, and Digits completely alive. Definitely swung that fight for Kittens very well. Great snipes from Claw in the after effect to hit down Garrett even through the Aegis on this Rama. Interesting to know, Hunbats didn't decide to go Blink, so he's 100% playing just for this counter engage. And honestly, with how well it's been going, 4K lead right now, I don't hate the call at all.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice there, but up against the Tsukiyomi, I kind of like it here for Kana. Makes that 1v1 probably swing much more heavily in his favor, having that Aegis. I mean, expect Tsukiyomi to probably go Aegis here as well, not a character that gets Blink all that often.
Pyromancer might just get snuck. Really good call. You know, you do lose the tower in the solo lane. Deathfang will eventually pick it up, and he does. But, you know, I think that's a really good veteran play right there. You know, you're down 4-1 in your previous fight, 4K deficit, still going to hover around there, actually, you know, nearing 5K right now. But having the wherewithal to just try to sneak an objective, get a little bit of a lead back, you definitely don't have any momentum or tempo for this Gold Fury play. As you notice, Claw is level 17, Danger is just turned 13, so there is a solid 4-level deficit in between those two as Storm just kind of gets wailed on a little bit. But, you know, trying to secure an objective while this Gold Fury is up, I think is a good play.
Yeah, Wukong down 2 levels as well has given up, you know, was already kind of down in lane and has given up more. The Storm could be in a tough position. The Fear No Evil off the mark. A great pluck there from Storm, expecting the monkey bounce in. That is a big ultimate, not going to find a home there for Kano. Only 20% cooldown so far, but it doesn't look like it'll matter. This Gold Fury burning quickly and is confirmed by KWM. HD Clutch finds the Somersault Cloud, jumps into 5 and will pay for it. Sam, you're level 14. Pays dearly for it. Gabe might pay the price as well. Super Deathfang just beating on him in the backline. Tsukiyomi forced to ult defensively. Storm next up on the menu. Garrett gets jumped on by the Hunbats. Does have that Aussie proc ticking though, and actually trades out nicely into the Hunbats. Overall, it is 2 kills plus a Gold Fury for KWM.
Yeah, really rough stuff right there. I think what we saw initially was, even though the Hunbat ult didn't find a home in terms of a kill, forcing Storm to be about 40% resetting wasn't really impactful in most of that fight.
Garrett has
Fighting a 45, and Garrett is just going to get picked. Really, really consistent play out of Garrett in this game so far, but one kind of slip up right there, and he's kind of falling in line with the rest of the team, who's been really, really far down as we look at this XP. Only Garrett was the only person who was sort of keeping even. Will probably start to get pulled away, but we saw Kano get a fantastic Hunbat's ult, just causing a lot of damage onto Storm, forcing Storm to back. You're in a 5v4 situation with at the time a 5k gold lead. Feeling really good about that. I think Clutch there on the Wukong, lost the Gold Fury, wanted to try to make something out of the fight. I think Gabe Ethan's Karen ult coming in looked really good. He thought maybe there'd be something here. We're down 5k. We want to try to force something to happen. And it feels really strange seeing like a 4-man Karen ult hit and then just weaving on Wukong. But unfortunately, that was the play Clutch had to make, and I think he just kind of got baited because it definitely looked like he was getting out until that Karen ult hit. And all of a sudden, this deficit is now ballooned to about 8,017.5 minutes. This quad phys comp, which we were worried about, maybe struggling in this late game, right now is slated to not worry about that, because with this lead, they can kind of just run over to this Fire Giant soon, and these fights for the crew are going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think that is a play from HD Clutch there that if he's the same level as this Bologna, probably goes fantastically. But down 3 levels, only 1.5 defense items so far, just wasn't as tanky as I think he's expecting to be at this point in the game. And now level 16, getting a little bit closer there, and does have the beads, which I like in this comp. Be able to get away from that Ardio cripple when he needs to. And speaking of Ardio, that's a mystical male Ardio.
Yeah, getting some magical damage. I like that. You don't have a lot of magical power, really any on your team, so just like an offensive option, I think Roar was the person who popularized this build. More offensive Ardio option, definitely do like it. This game specifically. The really big, concern point that I'm looking at for this crew draft right now is Danger is level 15, Claw is level 20. I don't really know where the Tsukiyomi goes to get value. Kano, building this Aegis like we mentioned earlier. This Tsukiyomi is just kind of stuck to be invisible this game. Notice he has 6,400 damage right now, which looks okay, but going into the future, 5-10 minutes from now, I'm really not sure if that damage is going to go up very much at all.
Yeah, target's going to be rough.
Might be a 1v1 in duo.
Level behind this support, but the 1v1 here, Garrett does not get the better end fighting without the Kins, whereas Tricky had already finished that out. Thought it could maybe hold his ground with that Aussie proc, but just too much damage from this on her. The level lead plus the finished Kins proves to be too much. And now Danger in trouble in the jungle. Is he able to find much? The Bologna all off the mark, which might mean that Danger sneaks out, and he does. A good attempt there, and it does buy enough time for Tricky to almost get this tier 2. Also almost died to it, but he did get it.
Yeah, he did have the Aegis, so, thankfully probably would be okay there, but another really solid fight. We did see Danger get out of there, forcing both actives, though, on this Tsukiyomi. Sprint popped by Storm as well. So, no kill onto him, but nonetheless, he still hasn't really been farming. Still level 15, 20 minutes now. We're going to see this entirety of Kittens with Mittens, apart from Dage's hit level 20, probably within the next 2 minutes or so as they're grouping around this Fire Giant, but it seems like a Gold Fury call might be the thing that's drawing a little bit more attention. And I mean, as it should, the crew really doesn't have the damage to kind of respond with the Fire Giant fight, or a sneak or burn or anything like that. It's really this weird situation where they're really far behind, but the Kittens can kind of just spread around the map. They don't have a lot of pick potential. And yeah, there's just a lot of trouble right now. You want to split the map if you're the crew right now, try to get some kind of farm back, but this Fire Giant almost certainly will be given up once the Kittens with Mittens decide to go over there.
Oni Fury goes down. I expect that will likely be the go button for this Fire Giant when those Oni waves spawn in. Do see that Shogun's picked up for the Ardio as well, helping out their objective burn with that triple auto attacker comp. Makes sense to me. And Bologna picks up a mantle on that fourth slot, is going to be so tanky diving in, and also gets the Axe of Animosity. That Bologna might be nigh unkillable to the level 17 or almost level 16 Tsukiyomi.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you have to lead in this situation, especially as a Bologna, you kind of have two options to go as he gets the Axe of Animosity as well. You can build more of an executioner right there, build a little bit more damage, and just play to absolutely kill their backline, or going this mantle a little bit safer of an option. I mean, listen, if Deathfang is, one of their win cons and he can't die, no reason to not just build the defense at him to make sure you can't die. to a greater extent. We see Garrett splitting. I think we'll see a very weak defense on this Fire Giant, but Storm turning around. We see Clutch around, so a little bit of steal potential perhaps, but with that one thrown out, this might just be conceded, just like it is.
Fire Giant does go down to KWM. A bomb use there as well. I assume somebody fat fingered that one instead of a ward, so one less Pyromancer bomb to worry about. This tier 2 is under siege, as is HD Clutch. They see the Rama in the left lane, Nap just now starting his back. KWM realizes they can go, and they have a minion wave. They're into the Phoenix. The snipes from Chiron doing quite a bit, but ult from the Hunbots is good. Danger off the map. HD Clutch very low, sitting in his cloud, is going to run up the lane. Might actually be able to get out here. A good burn for him. Likely will save his life. The pluck from the RDO, but Claw comes up clutch again. Garrett does punish the RDO. Kano is in this Phoenix, beating on the support. Gabe falls down as well, and this should be game 1 for KWM, barring a miracle defense here from A. Garrett. HP is low, does have that tier 2 oboe. The snipes 1-2 are not quite enough. That Bologna's so tanky, and it'll be a clean game 1 for KWM.
Yeah, so much kind of just of a lead right there, able to get one pick, and it just spirals. Claw dashing in, Super Deathfang ulting in, Hunbats jumping in, Tricky jumping in as well. Just so much of a lead being built, and it all kind of accumulated once they got their star items, got the Fire Giant. We're able to just kind of run down this entirety of this through draft. You know, so much dive on this team, but when you're behind, who do you dive? The answer is nobody. And Kittens take a very, very convincing game 1.
And taking a look at the player damage chart, the Super Deathfang Bologna going to town. 10k player damage more than anybody else in the game. That Bologna was a massive problem. We saw the Wukong prioritized fairly early in the draft, while some other options were still up. Might want to look at some other options for game 2 if you're the crew.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of difficulties kind of with this draft. One thing we talked about is digits. Getting the Kuzenbo taken away, first picking this Karen, didn't actually go support, ended up going mid, but they also took this Sobek before this RDO was locked in, so effectively 3 or 4 supports taken away. Going to this RDO, which really isn't a popular or meta pick, to most people when, you have characters like Athena and Ganesh up, and then doing very, very well on it, kind of blew up the entire crew draft plan, and you kind of just have to start from square one. Like a lot of the lanes really didn't go well. I think you definitely saw the game open up poorly in that double kill in mid. So maybe you want to look at getting Gabe off of this Karen, just getting Danger a little bit more pressure as well, kind of reevaluating, seeing how that goes. But a lot of questions here that need to be answered.
A lot of questions for the crew going into game 2. We're going to hop to a quick break, get everything set up on our end, and we'll be right back for game 2 of this set.
Hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as we Eloquent and brave is what I try to be. It's not what I crave, it's what they put on TV. It's strange we can see they built a world around, force feeding us lines and we just choke it down. 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 Industrial strange and any chemical. We're taking approaches to undo it all. The narrative pushed is always safe and sound. They're feeding us lies and we just choke it down.
Welcome back, everybody, to Olympus Smite League. Once again, I am hella new here with Snatty and the Wolfie Pup here for Game 2 of the Athens Division KWM versus the Crew. KWM win Game 1 pretty handily. What do you expect to see the Crew adjust here for Game 2?
So, one thing I didn't expect to see that they're going to continue with that crew that is this Kuzenbo band. So still looking to target out digits. Didn't work out the absolute best in game one. Wanted to see a little bit of a stray from it, but this solo lane matchup was kind of a passive losing situation for Clutch by Deathfang. This Bologna pick that does fortunately get banned. Really happy to see that. We were talking so much about the mid pressure from Claw and from this Chiron, just how much damage he was doing, but there was a 1k lead in solo kind of just like
I
out of
will win
nowhere.
peace
So
by
I
force.
want to see number one this early game, get cut off a little bit. Spolona Band does a great job of doing it. Securing this Hachi first pick is another attempt at just securing a strong early game. I think we're already beginning to see some proper adjustments.
I agree. Love seeing the Bologna taken away. Charon as well. If you're not planning on playing it, Gabe
Yeah,
think wants
just get
something
rid of it.
a little bit more pressure in that mid lane, and the Hachiman never going to complain. Did eat some minor nerfs in the last patch, but still feeling pretty darn good over there in the ADC role. And now
Triple
it's
bans for Gabe. Yeah.
triple Gabe bans. Shout out to Gabe. And now we see what
Warriors, to
KWM
battle!
wants to do here. Osiris still on the table if Super Death Fang wants the other OP auto attack Soul Lane God. But will be the on her again for The ADC looked pretty good on that one, and it's going to be the Wukong taken away from HD Clutch.
Yeah, so really an interesting pick. This on her honestly wasn't needed to be taken right away there because Gabe Ethans did secure this Hachiman. Gabe's not really the biggest hunter mid player aside from maybe the Chiron, maybe the AMC. I wouldn't expect to see this Hachi mid, so I think this on her pick is just a staple. Top two high pressure pick trying to hide the rest of this draft. Deathfang on this Wukong, I guess he's just kind of saying, Clutch, you can't play this Osiris, or I'm not worried about it if you do. Same thing with Vamana. So, Wukong is a strong laning phase character, really high secure on buffs, really strong.
Now is
And a
the
Nike's going to be
time.
hovered. I really don't like this. This is a very bad matchup for Nike, and we saw a lot of solo lane troubles. This Nike does end up getting locked in. Really difficult matchup. Could be a Nike jungle, but I'm not sure this is the response I wanted to see.
Nike
Now
jungle
to find a
would be
soulmate.
interesting. I mean, it's definitely not out of the possibility. Something we haven't seen a ton of, but doesn't seem like it should be horrible at any point.
Mhm.
Aphrodite getting locked in here more than likely for that support role for the crew. And now Digits cooking again over in support. Hovered
Mhm.
the RDO, now hovering a Bacchus.
I
When was the
like
last time you saw a Bacchus?
It's been a while, but I do like it here. Knockup immunity is really good into this Nike, and this Bacchus will get locked in. Knockup immunity is really good into this Nike. Anti-heal, obviously, for the Aphrodite, and it's another aggressive pick similar to this Ardio, where you can just kind of face tank everything in this dual lane. You look at on her Bacchus, really just a fight brawling lane, and obviously Hachima and Aphrodite, two really good picks, but Afro isn't necessarily this lane bruiser bully type of character. Generally trying to win the lane through sustain, and definitely hampered a little bit here into this Bacchus.
Yeah, despite getting your burp canceled out the majority of the time by the Afro, I do like picking up a little bit of anti-heal in your support. Bacchus does have that anti-heal and only need to take up his burp to hit for that to get applied. So I do like
Hmm.
that aspect of the matchup. Going down into some phase 2 bans, we see Thor, Tiamat, and then a Wheelix taken away. Something that wasn't really looked at game 1 despite the on her being locked in, and they don't want to deal with it this time.
Yeah, Thor, Wheelix definitely two danger gods that he really enjoys. So taking both of those at the table makes a lot of sense. I love this Chiron ban that comes out, trying to take that away from Claw, trying to shut the window realistically on this quad physical comp that the crew struggled with very, very much in game one. I'm definitely curious to see what Gabe goes for. Banning the Tiamat almost seems a little bit self-inflicted. I know Claw really likes the pick, but Gabe is kind of charting through, you know, a deeper kind of god pool here. One pick I really do potentially like to see is an Agni pick. Knockup community really good into the
This is one
Susano,
tale you
into the
don't want to
Bacchus, into
chase,
the Wukong.
darling.
Could be what we see from Gabe. Not entirely sure just yet. As the Circuit is hovered and locked, this is a very big comfort pick for Danger. Definitely like this pick.
Yeah, has some good matchups into Sasana and OCC immunity for that
Time to
character. And right
burn.
on the money where you
Yep,
with that Agni pick. Gabe on the same wavelength as you, going to lock that one in here. And we
just
see
a
this
mage
crew
now.
draft come together. How do you feel about their synergies here?
It's definitely a good draft. I like the idea of, Nike does synergize with this Aphrodite. Obviously, the Circuit pick means Nike is 100% going solo, but I'm not so worried about the solidity of the draft. I was really feeling good about the Cruise draft last game, but they struggled immensely, just not even surviving the early game. So until they kind of do okay in the early game, I'm really not too worried or concerned kind of with the Cruise drafting as this Opwatch pick is hovered. It's decent into the Agni, I suppose. Good into Aphrodite. After the end of last season, beginning of this season's nerfs on Opwatch, went from a top character in solo, sometimes in mid, to virtually non-playable. I think there's better mage picks than this Opwatch, but would be exciting.
I've seen a couple people try and mess around with this. I was actually watching some YouTube content the other day, and
Hmm.
Venenu actually was talking a little bit about Upwash potentially actually being okay right now, which maybe that's where they got their inspiration from, but instead
Yeah.
just looks like a
Face
troll
the wrath
hover
of a
and is going to
sorceress
be this more of a
scorned.
buffet, something that we expected to see a little bit more in the meta.
Yeah, this is definitely a Claw comfort pick. I've seen him play this pick a lot in ranked. I don't think it's honestly the best into this draft. Obviously, LaFay's got self peel. That self peel though really manifests in a knockup and a not a silence but a fear that's somewhat conditional. Not the best into a circuit that can kind of stick to you with an ultimate. Nike obviously knockback immunes, knockup immunes, and a self cleansing ultimate with this Aphrodite. So maybe not the best Morgan Le Fay game of all time, but really a pick Claw likes. Um, I think really what my kind of deciding factor for these drafts are is Clutch really struggled game one in this Wukong pick, which is a safe pick into Bologna, admittedly, which really does take advantage of matchups, and Death Fang's one of the premier solos in this league, so he was able to do that very well. I'm worried about the solo lane. I really, really am, and I think Kano's, he wasn't afraid to rotate on a Wukong with Hun Bats. I think Susano into this Nike, I expect to see him there a lot in this game.
Yeah, concerning solo lane game one could be even worse game two, or maybe Sam turns it around, pulls it out, shows us that it was just a bad game,
Hmm.
wakes up a little bit, gets the blood moving, and has a nice little bounce back game. If you're a fan of the crew, that is definitely something you are hoping for here. Do you think this duo lane is rather strong for the crew? Aphrodite and Hachi should have quite a bit of pressure over there, I imagine, but I just haven't seen a Bacchus in a competitive setting in such a long time that that's where my eyes are for this KWL
Yeah.
draft is what is this Bacchus doing in the draft, you know?
I think he kind of functions similar to a Sobek. Interestingly, Sobek was up, so Digits could have just went the Sobek here, would have been anti-heal, would have been good into this Aphrodite. Electing not to go for it, definitely kind of an interesting decision, but you know what? It's really just to dive. It's really just to go in. I think it does function kind of similar to this RDO. Maybe a little bit less safer, a little bit less peel, but it's just a really solid engage tool. I definitely don't hate it. I really love this Agni pickup. I think Gabe's going to have a great game. The only thing with this Agni that is a little bit cause for concern is really similar to this Karen. Has pretty weak early game fight, and Gabe didn't really get to impact the map until the game was already kind of lost on this Karen pick. Now, to be fair, Susano and Morgan Le Fay is definitely a little bit less concerning than this Hunbat's Chiron because this Chiron walked away um, with everything in the mid lane early game, game one from Claw. So LeFay definitely a weaker early game character. He doesn't hold the lead as much as a Chiron might. So I think we'll see a little bit more of a balanced mid lane kind of matchup here. And ultimately, if you look at the Kittens and Mittens not getting that double kill in mid, 7, 8 minutes in the game that kind of birthed a 2,500 gold lead, you could have been looking at a very different game one, So I think that's definitely an optimistic situation for the crew. I think you won't see early first bloods in mid as you did game one. And really, this is going to be more on the side laners.
I agree. Taking a look at our build loading in, nothing too out of the ordinary here. It does look it's going to be a conduit gem and a book of thought for Gabe Ethan. Not going the pressure option, could go for that conduit Chronos for a little bit more pressure if that's what they wanted, but going to get that book of thought and scale in the mid lane again.
Yeah, might be
I
going tablet into breastplate as well. Definitely an option.
It could be an option. I mean, we've seen something that's kind of fun in mid right now. Is it feels like a lot of builds, a lot of different gods are, pretty viable. Makes a lot
Yeah.
of fun to watch. Wukong going with that Bluestone as is the Nike actual nerfs coming out last patch, and see some characters start to go towards that Bluestone. Do you have any preference on these characters?
It's definitely, I think, still character by character. I do like Bluestone on Wukong. I have for a little bit. I think this Death Fang build rushing this Jotun's most likely and going to get that healing glyph. He is absolutely looking to fight, and after how good he did in game one, definitely makes sense. In a winning matchup, we're seeing Clutch rush what's likely going to be a mystical male. Interesting thing to note in this duo lane, we do see Storm going sprint, where Digits goes the horrific. So kind of, not expecting a lot of action in this duo lane on the side of the crew. Definitely kind of just looking to farm it out and play safe.
Yeah, Storm trying to be a little bit safer over on that Aphrodite. Get into that mid game where Aphro becomes such a monster. This is before the anti-heal's online,
I
before you
like this
can
by
kill her.
Danger.
Danger wrapping around onto the Wukong, realizing he's got a squishy build. Sam trying to set it up here. Definitely playing very patiently, holding on to that dash. Should be okay here as a result. Danger going to look for it though. Good knock up. Doesn't look like the taunts were able to land there for Danger. So instead, counter gank into
Great
the dual
pillar.
lane. Storm going to be jumped on. The beats forced out from Garrett. The jump in. Do they have enough damage? Not quite enough for the level 3 Susano. Is Storm just going to squeak out of there sub 100 HP before that heal comes off?
Just barely, yeah. Definitely feeling really happy you went that sprint pickup. Gabe is going to stop Claus back there. So we see two, effectively failed gank attempts, but I really like that Danger, instead of going to duo lane early, is trying to give Clutch a little bit of, just a pressure alleviation. Obviously, no kill really being possible there, but just doing anything. And again, Danger looking in mid, forcing a beats from Claw dash, and not going to be enough damage here. Claw almost might be able to return this, but not quite. A lot of damage, a lot of aggression. I like that the Circuit has realistically already been more active than the Tsukiyomi pick was in the first 15 minutes, 3 minutes
Yeah,
into the game.
Ranger trying to flex that early game CC and damage out of this Arquette. We love to see that purple buff getting
He's looking
inundated.
again.
Danger looking for Kano is going to get one of the mid camps. Purple buff looks like it was successfully invaded by KWM. Now blue buff under fire here for AD Clutch. Does look like he secures his own buff. Here
Huge.
comes Kano onto the Nike. No jump available, and the pull is good for first blood on the Susanu.
And that is what we were afraid of. Being able to secure his blue buff feels, nice. Dying though, especially after picking it up, definitely doesn't. And we're seeing Deathfang, who, had some pressure put on him. We've seen Danger get really active this game. I loved kind of what he's been able to do, getting Kano a little bit behind. All of that kind of effort has kind of just been nullified by that first blood for Kano. Now, kind of, where do you want, I guess the question is, where do we want to see Danger go? He could come back to solo, still a lot of damages. Storm just gets popped.
Storm,
Looking at his
no
build.
mana, walks up to that shield buff and just gets decimated there by the Desert Fury. Just a little bit over aggressive there is the crew duo lane. They lost both of their buffs, so they were down a
And I don't
full
think he
level.
backed. I don't think he backed either.
I don't
So
think he
after
did.
that fight from Kano, way 2.5 minutes ago, I guess they just thought they could kind of sustain, but not resetting, man. They lost everything. Tricky looking for a little bit of aggression, but nothing likely going to be here without this on her ult.
Losing both of your
yeah.
buffs plus a kill.
And
This
then staying
Afro
through all
going
of
to be
it.
so delayed. The dash in there, the Afro's on his way, but so is Baka's. Danger picks up one in the mid lane. Could be another. Kano is low, but not enough. Back to the duo lane. This Hachiman so low, but will be able to get out. Did have to use the ultimate though for Hachi. These purple and green not looking good. Gabe dives tower, gets the kill, and dies to the tower. So a net W there for the Agni. Maybe just wanting to make something happen here. The Bacchus damage so much this early. No intoxicate available, so Danger should be okay here. They're
Yeah.
just gonna take that chest camp with him.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I like that play by Gabe in mid. I think already the crew's feeling a bit of pressure. We saw Danger and Gabe struggle a little bit in the early game and give Kins with Mittens that early game lead. 1K lead already for the Kittens. This game, we mentioned side lanes, how important they would be in this game, as Did just steals away the purple buff with that Bacchus ultimate. Already showing a lot of value with the pick, but you're already kind of beginning to feel a little bit constricted if you're the crew. Solo's not going too great. Deathfang is probably going a cloak rush here, so he's going to be scaling a lot of damage, really good fight. And dual lane is going, I think, a lot worse than both of us expected. Storm definitely the worst thing after some pressure from Kano has just kind of made duo just a significant amount of just losing buffs on rotation, so it's difficult. I mean, this Aphrodite is level 5, probably just hitting 6, fortunately, but it just is a full level up on this Bacchus and is going to get all those neutrals in duo once they spawn.
Yeah, it's a small, uncharacteristic mechanical mistakes from this crew dual lane too. The banner missing the purple buff there, so it gets
Yeah.
out confirmed by Intoxicate. Just small mistakes you don't expect to see from these players. And look at where Scapesso is. He's just harassing them on these
He almost
buffs.
has ult soon. Oh, not quite. Okay, so
OSL might be in trouble here. Jumps straight into the waiting arms of Ape Ethan. The stun is good. Serket does have the ultimate if they choose to use it. They are dumping everything here. Last breath will come out. Wall going to look for the ult onto Danger. The Afro ult buys a moment's time, but the Typhoon is good from Kano. 1-for-1 would at least make Digits a little more hesitant about running at their buff.
yeah, and that was a great pick by Danger, but Storm had a terrible Aphrodite ult there. He ulted after the Susano already knocked up Danger out of his Circuit dash, or Circuit jump, excuse me, so he wasn't able to jump out of the fight. If that Aphrodite ult came out right away, Danger would have certainly lived that fight. And that's rough because Danger has kind of been your lifeline this game. Danger and Gabe have really just been creating any type of pressure and space for the crew, but with Danger dying there, you know, this is kind of identical to game one, about 8 minutes, 2k deficit, and Garrett's in a lot of trouble here.
Garrett's down 3 levels in this lane,
Wow,
going
yeah.
to lose the mounted archery as well. Danger and Storm on their way over. The dashes are down for KWM's dual lane. They are so far ahead. Beats forced out early onto the on her, but that is all that can be. No last breath available for the Circuit. They do at least get the beads away, which might alleviate a little bit of pressure, but the Bacchus is undeterred walking into this purple buff again. Surely he doesn't get it. Alright, good secure by the Circuit.
Really close by Scapesso there, almost securing that, but I mean, just the pressure you're putting, forcing Danger to rotate, forcing their backs to be stopped again. 2v3 situation here, and I bet you he's going to stop it again, and he will, and he's totally unchecked for this. A little bit of damage might happen to him, but Danger really probably doesn't want to full commit to this. Does get the ult off, a couple of body blocks right there, but not enough follow-up with Tricky throwing out this Impale. Pillar combo. Griffith is popped, kind of predetermined. Danger another blink in, but yeah, just not enough damage. Really good job by Tricky there to peel him out. And, you know, Scapesso's feeling great about that. He's just applying some pressure, getting cloak stacks, and keeping this Circuit from farming, who again has really been the pace setter for this game. And if, you know, Danger does fall a little bit too far behind, he's really going to want to just, like, shirk back to just farming and not doing much as Deathfang putting pressure on in solo. Really scrappy game. I think this 3-3 doesn't really decipher exactly what's been going on, but Kings with Mittens are consistently getting the upper hand in these fights.
Yeah, brawling very heavily are these teams, specifically Scapesso. Just in every single buff spawn for the crew, there is a Bacchus just wandering around, so tanky due to that passive on Bacchus giving you that percent mitigation. Character is always obnoxiously tanky. It is going to be that early pathetic cloak for Super Deathfang, already getting the better end of these trades for the most part. Now it's going to start hyperscaling with that cloak.
Yeah, I do like that Clutch in response goes this upgraded teleport, just kind of trying to weather the storm. Mavaldis poke and just TP back, you know, as consistently as he can, but definitely does delay his build a little bit, where Deathfang will likely get the teleport for free, you know, albeit way later in this game. But yeah, 2k deficit, definitely not the same as we saw in game one. A lot of it was on Danger and Gabe in game one. This one is almost exclusively in this duo lane. Tricky 2.5 levels up probably right about now. The support deficit with Scapesso getting that death in mid a little bit earlier, kind of evened that out, but Garrett, who I think was pretty consistent in game one, at least until the game got really out of hand, is now the person with the biggest lead in game two. So just a lot of variety in the Kittens kind of attack strategies per game.
They will not leave this Nike alone, forced to jump away. It does actually secure over Typhoon.
Great secure.
Nicely done by HD Clutch, and a little bit of a head scratcher from Kanu, but buff secured nonetheless. Gabe just getting harassed around the map. It's the story of the day. The ping's coming out saying, "Please help me, Storm. There's a Bacchus running at me. Please help."
Yeah, and they just can't kill him, at least alone. But Danger is here, blink in.
Blink in is the Circuit, the jump over the wall, the bombs are good from Gabe, everything on the mark. Now a little bit scrappy, Okano trying to find some damage, but doesn't have that ult, the Aphrodite ult forced out, perhaps a little bit preemptively, but does make sure Gabe is able to stay. Okano looking for a little more, gets the pull onto Danger, jumps back into the back camps, is not going to be able to find that jump. No Aphrodite ult available to help out their jungler. And it's again 1-for-1, but you're trading your jungler for their support.
Yeah, Storm on this Aphrodite hasn't looked too comfortable. You'll notice in that fight that Gabe separates a little bit over to those chest camps, breaks the link on Aphrodite, leashes Storm a little bit to the right side of that engagement, gets Danger a little bit isolated kind of by proxy as Claw's Aegis is forced. Great engaged by Gabe, not enough damage. But this Aphrodite hasn't been all the way grouped. You know, that ult was definitely a little bit preemptive, didn't really do much there. This Bastion will have to be given up here, or excuse me, this Beacon will have to be given up here. And yeah, the Aphrodite really hasn't had too much impact. You know, you generally think this Aphro is tethering to one person and just sort of making them unkillable. But Danger sort of just got left behind again for really his second death in a row.
Red buff invade attempted there, and now Kano could be in some trouble. Doesn't have the beads available, but Spesso doing a great job peeling everything out. I mean, the red buff was secured by the crew, so well done there by Danger. Derek gets impaled to jump in from Tricky, forces out the mounted archery, stops it short, doesn't end up paying for it. Ultimate exchange there in the duo lane. Looks like Aegis forced to be used there as well by Garrett. Ricky getting the better hand of these exchanges over in the duo lane.
Yeah, I love that Tricky is just pushing this lead, getting these neutral camps level 15 now to Garrett's 13, so it's really a steady 2-level lead, which feels great here. Another kind of miscommunication, misplay by Storm and Danger there. Danger's ulting this Susano of Kano back into the fight, but Storm interrupts this knockback with the backstep, so Kano's only thrown back probably 20% of the length he would have been. These two really just need to kind of get on the same page a little bit more, because they've kind of been dropping kills, dropping potential of getting kills, and it's really not worked out so far.
Not working out though. The link onto Gabe, dashes through. Tricky taking nearly no damage here. That does have to Aegis out the Ogni bombs. Here come the rest of KWM though, and they know Gabe is a little bit low here. Looks like he is going to be able to retreat unless Kano can close the distance. Spotted out is the Susano. Instead, Storm going to be the target, and nothing really coming from it. Scapasso again, just being annoying. I love
and he rushed Spectral as well. He rushed Spectral as well, seeing that Garrett is going into crit. Obviously, Circuit has crit. Clutch rotates over, taking a lot of damage here.
Clutch rotates over, getting blown up. The ultimate is not enough. Tricky doing so much, but Danger picks him up on the backside. 1-for-1 so far. The great pull back in by Kano falls down to the Bacchus, and Danger is next. Super Deathfang finds another one, and the Aphrodite is all but dead here. No tower to help you out, and it is a side on KWM.
Yeah, that is brutal. I mean, I think Gabe literally got a 5-man stun that fight, so you really can't expect too much of a better situation for your follow-up, but the fight was a little bit split on the side of the crew in terms of the damage. Again, we see Garrett behind, fighting on this duo side. At this point, the whole team is behind, so that, struggle is kind of beginning to spread. Deathfang with these cloak stacks is beginning to get pretty tanky. Scapesto with the Spectral, negating this Circuit just a little bit as well. Just so much damage kind of being spread out, really wasn't able to capitalize on the crew side, and Pyromancer now being looked at 6k lead. Again, it just seems like 1 or 2 fights and all of a sudden the game is just kind of being blown over. Scapesto 3-level lead on this Bacchus. Both these supports were level 10 before that fight, so all of a sudden huge lead in support. Usually the ADC obviously persists, and duo lane is really kind of dead in the water this game for the crew.
Yeah, I was wondering if Garrett was going to see that early Spectral come out and just ditch the tier 1 dagger or something, just not upgrading
Yeah.
your T1 doesn't feel that bad now that he's committed to the T2. Probably just committing to it now that you've bought that. And we gotta talk about the Serket's build a little bit as well. That early
Mhm.
Relic Dagger is something we kind of only see on Serket, it feels like. And then into what I assume will be a late
Transcendent.
Transcendence here for
Yeah.
Dagger. So a little bit of an interesting build going into that defense utility that no one gets some more damage anyway. Curious to see where he takes the rest of his build.
Yeah, I'm definitely not too sure. Danger really loves the Serket pick, so I trust that his build will make sense eventually. I think he'll probably go a Bumbus Hammer eventually, obviously. Maybe go like a Binding into a Serrated, so trying to play both sides of defense and damage with the rest of his build. His Pyromancer, I think, virtually is kind of uncontestable. Has Pesto and Tricky to whittle this down, but Gabe is looking for bombs, and he does steal it.
Bombs are good. HD Clutch pops that ultimate and is deleted by the Honor. They got the Pyromancer. Can they get out? Only losing your Soul Laner. Excano can't close the gap. The stun forces the jumps away, and now the Bacchus under some pressure. The MLF ult comes out as well, but nothing happening so far. The Serket is kind of tanky with that Relic Dagger. Mid T1 was not long for this world. Blinking into the out of Gabe Storm, trying to live, but will not do so. Tricky is on a rampage 3-1 in this mid lane. They steal away the Pyromancer, but lose 2 and their mid T1 crew desperately trying to claw their way back in, just can't quite find consistent victories.
And this is the second game in a row where we're seeing the crew make some decent plays, and then you're wondering how is the fight going so bad, and then you just see these crazy level disparities by a couple of members where Storm is down 7 levels to Tricky, he's down 7 levels to Claw. This Aphrodite really is not going to be able to get any value. Last game it was Danger dealing with that situation, and this game it's Storm. So a lot of these fights, with this such a concentrated deficit on 1 or 2 of the members, you're really not getting value out of one of your players. So these 5v5s, they're pretty like misleading most of the time. And we did see the Pyromancer steal at the very least. I think one thing that the crew can be happy about is that Claw doesn't really have the best secure. They have a pretty good burn with this Kittens draft, maybe not the best burn, or at least a burn comparable to last game. So there are still opportunities at these objectives, but their fight is just so much weaker with this Aphrodite so underfarmed right now.
Yeah, the Afro needs to go on a training montage if we're being real here. Just farm it up so far behind. I do like the Spirit Rope. Second out of the Afro, trying to find quick cheat tankiness. Taunts are good for the certificate out of the MLF. Here comes the Bacchus, as always, over the wall. Beads were taken away from Claw in the mid lane. Super Deathfang looking for the wrap here, should be spotted out by HD Clutch. Could actually be a little bit too far forward by himself. Does lose that ultimate. Good punish there by the crew, but Oni Fury going down could be for 3 here. HD Clutch and Garrett are getting close, going to try and steal it, and they do steal it away. Excellent steal there from, not sure if it was the banner or the one from Nike, but either way, a great steal away from the crew to try and get a little bit of momentum back in this game.
Definitely, and I mean, forcing Claw's beads, getting that Oni Fury on the side of the crew kind of does slow the game down. That's the second time this game we've seen Clutch. I believe that was Clutch secure an objective, whether that was his own blue buff or Gold Fury over Kano. So Kano definitely needs to be a little bit more patient and just a little bit earlier with that Susanoo ultimate to secure these objectives. Definitely, though, not like the easiest thing in the world to do. As a jungler player, I know Kano plays ADC. It's not really securing objectives isn't really the thing you're like taught to do. So probably just something he's a little bit unfamiliar with. But the crew kind of able, really just in a stroke of luck, able to build a little bit of a lead back into this game. Obviously, still in a hole that they need to dig themselves out of, but this Nike pick, at least, in the secure sense, has definitely gotten them some value.
Yeah, only 3,500 down isn't horrendous at this point in the game, really. XP a bit more concerning, 6,000, but XP, comes a point where the XP stops mattering. The old saying, if you only hit level 20 once, is indeed true as much of it as it is a cliche. really just need this Aphrodite to catch up. ADCs both ticked over to 20. Really, only huge leads here are the 3 levels in support, and 2 levels in mid is noticeable. I think Storm is stuck to that mid lane a little bit, trying to get some farm. Happens over the
Great stun.
Pyromancer, blink in from danger. Doesn't try to hold up, takes a lot of space, flush with his own as well. The Pyromancer going down.
Oh,
For
so
free,
close.
so the jump in from Massive buys a lot. He is stuck in the
Yeah,
middle of
isolated.
5 without his jump. Is just waddling away though. Kana finds a huge Typhoon in the middle when the tick from Storm is good for the kill. Garrett picks up a second Aphrodite ult for a little bit of immunity, and it is a 3
Wow.
for nothing plus Pyromancer for the crew. A fantastic turn of events here.
Absolutely. We see Scapesso get a fantastic Thorns, great horrific onto the entirety of the crew. But the engage is just a little bit separated. Kano's a little bit too far away. Deathfang was obviously poked a little bit, so the Kittens aren't entirely looking to engage after obviously the poke that they just took. And you kind of just see them go in one by one. And I mean, to their credit, Danger had a great engage to start the fight. Gabe with amazing follow-up. Storm, Aphrodite, was good there. Relics were good there as well, just kind of keeping his team alive. And the deficit is completely kind of gone, especially if they can secure this fire giant. Look at Claw, definitely the first can contest this camp, but look at Clutch. Oh, Deathfang also in the back, also able to put on some pressure, but Danger and Clutch are just looking for Claw right here. We'll see what happens as the fight is completely split. Deathfang taking a lot of damage with his ultimate, probably will force them off of this fire giant.
Buying so much time here though is the Wukong. Does eventually fall down. Eventually finds danger. The fire giant is low. Looks like the crew are going to commit to it. The KWM right here to get the fire giant. Can they get out? Clutch in the back. Solo's out. Claw. A fantastic job by the Nike to make sure his team does not get turned on here. Crew looking for a little bit more. Baka still has to jump.
Great dash.
Typhoon off the mark from Kano. Gabe playing so well on this Agni, and a fire giant on 4 members of the crew. Take a look at those player damage charts. The 2 big notes get Gabe at the top, and Super Deathfang is only a couple thousand ahead of the Nike. A huge improvement from game 1 in the solo lane for crew.
Yeah, this Nike pick, I mean, I definitely was worried about the matchup, but once you get to a certain point in the game, the matchup doesn't matter anymore, and this Nike's looked fantastic as this game's progressed. I think the crew have, that Fire Giant pull, I think the fight, preceding that, you could look at it as reckless, but they're kind of playing with house money down 0-1 right now. This game, by all accounts, kind of was looking like it was over, and the momentum has just completely swung. We're seeing the crew, even after securing that Fire Giant, definitely a little bit questionable at first, but we saw Gabe looking for more potentially after the fire, avoids the Typhoon, doesn't die, just getting so much farm, but he is very far pushed up on right. You see Deathfang begin to walk over, but hopefully Gabe does reset here and get it off, and he will just barely. So a lot of farming by the crew being done. Starter items are going to be secured on the entirety of the team besides Danger at this point, which looks like he's backing for his. So a little bit of recklessness by the crew. That fire giant was definitely a flip. I don't even think there was like a true damaging ability that really secured it. It was a true 50-50, but able to be on the friendly side of that as they have for most of the objectives this game, and the crew for the first time in this set have a lead.
Yeah, have a nice 3,000 gold lead, and there's 3 tier 2 towers plus a tier 1 available for the taking, so a great opportunity for that gold lead to expand. And it's something that's kind of always been in Smite, but you really notice it these last couple seasons. Feels like when you are winning a game and then it gets flipped.
What's
the
going
amount
on
of
in mid though?
Our
Okay.
gold.
You.
Just testing the waters. Gabe just solo walking up to 5 people.
I think Danger was with them, but yeah, it looked like they were trying to like 2v5 gank the entire team. Definitely very happy they didn't decide to do that, but stopping some backs a little bit, clearing out this tier 2 tower, 5k lead. Don't need to go for these Phoenixes, but it's definitely an option as we will see the crew begin to back out. Really important to keep an even keel at this point in the game, as Gabe is looking again for poke. Should be okay here though, thankfully. Maybe a little bit too active as Danger gets a blink, forces of beads. Susano will be okay. I think the crew are getting a little bit too antsy right now. Just play for your tier 2s, peel back to this Pyromancer, build a solid lead, go back to another Fire Giant. Definitely want to see them slow it down just a little bit here.
Towers get a lot easier now with a no Susano ult and no on her ult, both used on a low HP Danger. Didn't find it. Gabe looking for the flank, gets spotted out by Presto.
Great
Stuns
stun.
are so good, so much damage from the Agni, but HD Clutch getting melted by Tricky. Jump in from Danger, finds the last breath on the Kano, he's evaporated. Danger cannot live through it. Agni doing the damage as we've so often seen. HD Clutch forced to ult defensively and has to jump away. Gabe push forward, does hold on to the beads. Aegis forced out. The flop is not enough, and the chase is on for KWM. Nike down low has the Afrolink for sustain. They are going to be able to walk away a 1-for-1, but 3 towers off the map, and could be a fairly free Pyromancer, is going to be a free Pyromancer. Super Tech fan not going to step up to this one, and the crew have expanded this lead to 7,000 gold.
This game has been, like, these fights have been so weird to watch because you're seeing Gabe almost in the backline half the time. He's playing like a solo Agni, but is still living somehow. He wrapped around at that tier 2 to get bombs over the wall onto Tricky, forced his Aegis. That fight almost went really, really well. Heads up play by Tricky just to Aegis the damage that he really couldn't see just coming at him. Had he not Aegis that, I think would have died, and the crew would have had a fantastic fight right there. 1-for-1 trade doesn't feel the absolute best, but Fire Giant was peeling off, did get the tier 2. Definitely in a commanding spot for this next Fire Giant. I think Storm's done a much better job of peeling Gabe out, especially with how aggressive Gabe's been. We want to definitely see more of that happening. And one thing to note is with Garrett having this heavy crit build, Deathfang still doesn't have the Spectral. He's got the tier 2 right now, but it's still sort of an opening on him where he could be in a lot of trouble if he gets engaged on.
Absolutely. KWM does not want to let this Fire Giant go, though they are grouped up here. Down at about 6,000 gold is certainly a spot you can still fight into it. Almost everybody full build outside of the supports. XP lead means essentially nothing at this point, just the supports need to tick over to level 20. Look at builds, yeah, full builds across the board here. The Spectral is done, except for Tricky actually still needs to finish off that last item. Could be potentially something like an MLF as well, so still a little bit actually to look for here for the crew. You have that last power spike. Don't have 3Ks yet or anything like that. Still a nice, comfortable spot, but neither team has great secure on this Fire Giant. Expect to see both teams look for a fight rather than trying to finish it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the crew are okay with that. Danger and Gabe have always been ready to just look for engages in this fight. Fire Giant knock up onto Garrett, potentially some negative foreshadowing, but so much damage onto Claw. He's just going to fall here from the Clutch Danger dive together.
Clutch and Danger are doing so much. The hybrid styles for Ket build. Kano 1 HP dies to the tick. Crew gets the Fire Giant as well. Deathknight does have the ultimate, but running against 3. And Danger is just living forever. He has these couple tank items, and they just don't have enough damage to deal with the mobility, the CC, the so much damage coming out of the circuit. I have loved this pick for him, and the Nike as well, doing so much. Full defense, has the redstone, is just a brick wall running at them in the jungle. This improved dive from the crew is looking so much better.
Definitely, and Scapesto on this Bacchus doesn't give the peel that the RDO gave, as the Smith Phoenix will just melt down. Another taunt on the Tricky. Beads is forced. Danger will disengage. Definitely a right Phoenix on the sights of the crew, and this should go down with little to no resistance. And hopefully we'll just see a disengage here. Definitely want to see that. You've got a big lead.
They dashed in.
But yeah, Danger is still looking for stuff. Gabe, a lot of trouble, will likely fall here.
Gabe dashes in and pays for it, but the Kittens with Mittens are getting low. Tricky has 1 HP, they can't find it. Clutch does find it, actually. Danger, finally, somebody stops it. So Garrett finds Kano, could find another, needs one more auto onto the Bacchus, and he will
Clutch
find it.
Oh, wow.
Claw gets chased to the ends of the earth by the Nike wave. Not quite here yet. They do have an afro. Might need to wait for a wave, but they've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, they've got
It might not happen right away, but this game will go to the crew eventually.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, that entire fight, like, there's so many warning signs that make you think the crew is just going to lose. They're overextending so far. I have so much gold in the coffers. Definitely could look to spend it, but No, they just decide to turn it up. Gabe dashes in, Danger like blinks over a wall and jumps in, and Clutch I think gets the kill onto Tricky with this redstone. It takes for 5 seconds, so just so much damage, so much chase. Really kind of reckless play by the crew towards the second half of that game, but they had so much momentum. I think they felt really, really good. And are the plays really reckless if they're working? I would say no. This was realistically, by all accounts, a huge throw by the Kittens with Mittens. They had such a big lead, and then just kind of taking some disjointed fights, let this Aphrodite catch back up into the game. And this team deathballed so hard. Danger had so many great engages. Clutch had a really, really consistent Nike performance towards the later half of this game. Garrett 4-1 and 5. He was down 4 levels almost at one point in this game. Really recovered well, and this Agni pickup was fantastic.
Agni looked fantastic for Gabe. 3 mage bans is not enough to slow down Gabe, Ethan. Danger and Clutch looking much, much improved on that new dive. I like that style from him. Would like to see it come back. On the other side, the Susano and the Bacchus felt like they struggled. Gabe was putting them in positions to play perfectly, and it just wasn't quite happening for KWM. Dashing in aggressively, making them play the fight defensively, and they were not able to handle it. And how many fights did we see there where Gabe was dashing in ahead of his team and just baiting everybody in to look at him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, another thing, you can't lose that many objectives. They lost a Fire Giant
Yeah.
flip that I guess can go any way, but they probably should have been able to secure that one. Kano screwed up some blue buff invades early on. They messed up some gold furies that Clutch was just able to steal. You look at all those little things and you compound that all together. Deathfang would have been more ahead early game. Kano would have been more ahead, obviously. The whole team would have been more ahead. There were all these little instances where there was just so much farm, but I think big picture, obviously, you look at this game, you say, we had this game, we kind of choked it and threw it away. But this Circuit, this Agni, definitely want to look at maybe taking away one of those.
Would not agree more. We're gonna jump to a quick break so we can get set up for game 3. Stay tuned for I am forgetting words. For the conclusion of this set. There we go. We found the words. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for game three of Between the Crew and KWM Athens. My name is Helen, here one more time with Snatty and our spectator, the Wolfie Pup. So a very exciting back and forth game two. The Crew were able to tie up this set. What would you like to see both of these teams do going into game three?
No, honestly, I don't think draft was too much of a problem in that game for either team. I think both teams got what they wanted in the draft. It just ended up being kind of a game of throws and missed objective secures. I want to see this Bologna be banned again, and it is. Notice Kittens and Mittens, our first pick, they were second pick in game one and two. So a bit of a change here. Interesting to see what first pick character they're prioritizing for this draft.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. Kano's been favoring the on her very heavily and has been looking great on it. I mean, they let the Hachiman through last game and, didn't have the best of time, bounced back nicely in the late game, but wasn't that, overwhelming force like Hachiman sometimes is. So far, the band's looking the same as game two. Bologna, Charon, Cuckoo, AMC, and then the Aphrodite is
I'm
actually
shocked
going
by
to get
that.
banned out here.
Yeah, the Aphrodite definitely caused problems in the late game, but I think if the Kinsman Mittens just executed a little bit better once they had the lead that they did have, the Aphrodite at that point was completely irrelevant. So a little bit surprised to see that ban, but I think Storm's probably feeling a little bit relieved. Probably didn't want to play it again. That game was feeling pretty rough for a long period of time. This Kuzenbo will be banned again, so Digits, aka Scapesso, is going to have to go to a different type of pick as the
I
Hachiman
will
is going
win
to be
peace by
covered.
force.
This could potentially mean no on her pick, and it will be locked in. So Tricky, most likely, assuming this Hachi is going ADC, will be playing a different character. Interesting to see, will Claw go for this Kyron as he did game one? Will this Kitten's team decide to go back to the Quad Fizz? I think that's
So
what I'm
here's
looking
what
at.
I'm concerned about.
Hmm.
We just let Gabe have Thoth if he wants it.
That's true.
That character
Now,
is usually permabanned from him.
yeah, that is true. You could go the Daji, you could go picks like the Ares, even Athena at times can be good into Thoth, Amaterasu. I don't know if Deathfang is the biggest Amaterasu guy. But those are definitely good picks into Thoth, Thor as well. So there are counter picks, quote unquote, but they're not the easiest to execute, and you have to have them in your god pool, and then you're still playing into a top tier pick. So I think Gabe's definitely at least thinking about it, right? There's definitely counter potential. I think to some extent, Gabe might be wondering, can I third pick this Thoth? Will Claw pick it? Conventional wisdom would say absolutely, but again, these teams know each other a little bit better than maybe we do. So might be considering, do I even need to take the Thoth just yet?
Yeah,
Um,
Crew's
yeah,
spending a lot of time on these picks here, really thinking about what they can do. Or the lobby crashed. That
or the
does
lobby
appear
crash.
to
Yeah,
be what happened here.
that's
It'll be
okay.
just a moment while we get the lobby back set up. But yeah, with that Hachiman first pick locked in, I mean,
It opens
I,
up everything. Yeah, and
I
what's so
yeah.
difficult too is I'm wondering if you're danger here. The Tsukuyomi looked horrible, and the Circuit looked fantastic. When do you take that Circuit? Do you take it third pick? Do you try to top two it? I think top twoing it's a little too much, but at the same time, I don't see Scapesso taking something like a Bacchus to counter it. So maybe just top twoing it is okay. Do you want to take the on her? Garrett hadn't played it yet this set, mostly because Tricky just kind of insta picked it, but there's so many different kind of moving parts with this draft. Um, that it's difficult kind of to see what direction you want to take it. I think a lot here comes down to what is going to happen with this Thoth.
I would like to see the Crew pick the Thoth here because I do think Claw will play it. And honestly, I mean, we don't have to talk. We don't have to go into
Yeah,
detail, but Gabe's Thoth is, I mean, when he got pulled to the SPL, that's what he picked. So you got if you can play it in the SPL and look pretty decent on it, I assume it will do well enough for Olympus Might League. I would like to see that
yeah, I
pick
forgot
through
about
here.
that. That's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he played for Levi's. He played Thoth twice
Hmm.
and looked decent on it for considering coming into SPL. Can't expect to do too much. Uh,
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I'm worried about though is if you do top pick this Thoth, what happens? Does Kano immediately go for a Daji? If so, there's a lot of worries about that. Now, obviously, you can go like an animosity support, excuse me, absolution support. That's what it is. Some kind of support that has a low cooldown ultimate like Ganesha, maybe, and just use that as like a pseudo beads for this Thoth. To cleanse out this Daji, that's definitely an option. I think this Aphrodite band makes a little bit more sense now in the scale of things because it's sort of taunting and baiting this Thoth pickup. Honestly, I don't love it with how good of a game Gabe just had. I'm not sure if you really want to flaunt him to pick probably the best mage and potentially character in the game, but um, a strategy is a strategy. And again, I think you do get that Daji into the Thoth if that is the direction the kids with Mittens want to go. You're definitely feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, it feels like KWM are saying, play the Thoth, we have answers. I do think Ganesh could be a nice look for Storm. Another kind of, the Aphrodite looked good late game, peeling out for the team. Another style of defensive, peeling style of support could do well here for Storm. I'd also like to see some prio onto Sam's pick for, excuse me, HC Clutch over in the solo lane. Get him on something that he'll be okay with, even if it is just top three Nike. And it's not, necessarily the best thing in the meta right now, but he looks so much better on that pick than he did
S-
on the Wukong. Would
Yeah,
like to
and
see
so
some comfort over there.
absolutely, and so much better might even be a little bit disingenuous because truthfully, it was just great late game. I mean, it looked really, really good. I think part of that was the Morgan Le Fay pick. Doesn't really do great into Nike, but at the same time, are there really mages that do great into Nike? Maybe ESET. You're not picking ESET right now in mid, so and
Nope.
Nox as well, right? So Nike's just good into most backliners, and the pick did look good. And we will see finally back into the game. So the draft, we can finally figure out what's going to happen here as the Anhur is going to be hovered. Don't need to take this Anhur right away
Now is the time.
because this
Warriors,
Hachiman's already
to
locked
battle!
in, but the Nike as well being hovered, and both of those will be locked in. So they are saying, we don't even want the Thoth right now. We dare you to pick it.
That's an interesting choice here for the crew. Maybe saying we
And
want to
they won't
see
even,
what they
wow,
pick here is going to be Sobek and then a Wheelix locked in. So some
Go,
counters to the
Suku!
Me
Nike.
booty is
Plus
the
you got
best
your
booty.
Sobek to set up for your Wheelix as well on her. Also, some difficult matchups there. That a Wheelix pick is very, very good into the top two of crew. Now,
definitely.
Thoth still on the table.
Thoth
I
is good here. Agni's really good here. Knockup immunities into that comp does feel good. Um, I would like to see Gabe take a pick here,
To shatter
but
mountains!
instead, we're going to see a Thor hover and actually a Thor lock in. Interesting to note, Danger had the opportunity, obviously, to go to first Circuit, but Circuit jump doesn't feel too great into that comp. Knockup immunity on the Thor in his third ability, so does have some type of safety. And we think about Nike as really bad into a Wheelix, so to speak, but she does have a two knockup immunities in her kit, so isn't the worst matchup in the world. Um, I'm surprised though that Gabe doesn't get his mage pick prioritized in at least the top three. Thoth, wasn't even prioritized on the kids of Mittens side either. So really curious to see where these mages decide to go, or these mid laners decide to go
Yeah,
for the
there's
draft.
two ways to go about, kind of feeding your star player. Gabe, I've, definitely last game the star player of the
Yeah,
crew. You can either say, run it, prio his pick, get him something that he's going to be really, really comfortable and carry on again, or hey, I'm so good I can just kind of play whatever here and it'll
yeah,
be fine. And it seems like
Greetings,
Crew is
friend!
going more that option. The Ogni and Thoth are taken away, unsurprisingly. And then Kepri picked here for the crew. I love this pick from Storm. It's very good into that Wheelix shuts
yep.
down that combo of just pick a frontliner and then fight, and
I'm
it
wondering,
does let Gabe see the entire draft before picking here.
I'm wondering if we'll see a Death Fang Achilles here. Really decent lane into this Nike, not great into the on her. Definitely struggles a little bit into the Thor as the Achilles does get hovered. Love how that works. But Kepri execute really strong, pretty good lane into this Nike. We saw the Wukong ban happen from the side of the crew with this Chiron, as the E set is actually going to be hovered with this Achilles. Again, it's good into Nike, but it is terrible into this Thor and on her. I definitely don't think this is the pick. But one thing I guess, as you said, does do is objective secure. And to be totally honest, I think the Kittens, had they had better objective secure in game one, or excuse me, in game two, they do walk away with that game pretty cleanly. So I don't love the pick, but it is an answer, for a big issue they had in game two.
Yeah, you said something we've seen in support more recently than we've seen in the mid lane, but if this is locked in, would have to be for the mid lane. The Sobek is there, and that's not going to the mid lane unless they're, really cooking out here.
Yeah, I'd hope
Sobek
not.
mid might be a little bit too much,
Might be
and
a bit
they're
too much. Yeah.
taking their time thinking about this. Does have some okay matchups, but also some bad ones, as you've noticed. I mean, has a decent matchup into Khepri as well. That silence is very nice, along with the Spirit Ball. But
Yeah,
can
and
it
Gabe's.
survive into On Her
Evil
Ooh.
Thor?
doesn't
And it
stand a
is going
chance.
to get locked in
You
here
are
for
finished!
Claw.
I said that
They
as
are
a
betting it
throwaway.
all.
Yeah, I said that you said as a throwaway of like, yeah, it's good into Nike, but you won't actually pick it. And listen, it is so difficult into any type of like on the map disruption. So think of On Her Pillar, obviously Thorwall. It's good into the Nike, but it's terrible into those other picks. I'm really curious to see what Gabe takes as his 10th pick here. It really could just be something as simple as a Merlin. Agni's a really good matchup into the E set. Obviously, that is banned though. Thoth is another one that's really good into E set. Obviously, is banned as well. Um, Gabe's God pool, I think, is pretty deep, so I'm not worried about him not having a pick. But I feel like there's a lot of good options here. I think this Achilles pick was a good response for what the crew did end up drafting. But ultimately, like I just look at this crew draft, I think the Awilix Sobek kind of combo play is a little bit overvalued. Obviously, the early game on this comp is strong, but I look at the crew, and this is the first game that I guess, the first game they had a good draft, but I think this is the first time where I look at their draft and say, their draft is pretty good, and there isn't some weird conditional of like, but they need to get through early as a very, very, very strange 10th pick cover
These mid
for
laners
Gabe.
are in the kitchen. There,
Yeah,
Chonga was hovered, and then a
Let the
Artemis
hunt
walked
begin.
in. I mean,
I actually really like
Let the
that.
hunt
that
begin.
has to be going to the mid lane. It is going to the mid lane here. The Bluestone Artemis, we saw it peek its head out a little bit last season with some of these changes to some pen items, Transcendence getting that pen instead of cooldown, Titan's Bane getting a little bit of buff. These Bluestone Hunters are finding their way back in. Artemis has great matchups into most of the team on
Most of the team. Absolutely. And I mean, this is reminiscent of game one where we had a team that went quad fizz and it was obviously Kittens with Mittens in that game. And they walked away with the early game. I look at Artemis into Issa and say that's a fantastic matchup. Artemis into Wilix, another fantastic matchup. I obviously, honestly, I've never seen Gabe pick this character. So it's definitely a surprise. But they have so much fight in mid. Their fight in duo is a little bit worse than the Hachi Sobek, but it's still good. And HD clutch into this Achilles, I think the matchup's actually a little bit overblown. Achilles obviously can just stun out that Nike first ability and second ability, but as long as clutch keeps some range, he actually should be pretty okay here. I really, really like what the crew have done this game.
Yeah, this draft comes together nicely. You have amazing engage here between the Thor ult, the Nike ult, the Artemis ult. Gonna have to keep an eye to see if ends up being a Blink Artemis or not. Would obviously give
Hmm.
you that hyper dive, but be a little bit less safe. But if you look on the other side, there's not, a ton of things forcing your Aegis. Obviously, the Achilles execute is something, but ESET doesn't traditionally have that ability you really need to Aegis out. But outside of maybe a
Hmm.
late game max range spirit ball, but if that's hitting you, you're probably losing the fight anyways.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah. And, you know, one thing, Kano's went Aegis. He went Aegis last game as well. Beads Aegis on the Susano. Might go Aegis again this game. Probably Willick's a little bit more of a blink necessity god, but honestly, I would say the same thing with Susano, and he decided not to go it. So, this is weird. Again, I think you see that the Kins with Mittens have a pretty strong early game draft, but it's not like this cruise draft is bad early at all. And ultimately, like, I'm not so sold on the synergy between this Awilix and this Isa and this Sobek. I know they have knockups and, they can kind of feed off one another with that, but how many people really play with an E-set mid and are comfortable with, plugging into Spirit Balls and kind of just following up off of all of that? It just feels a little bit forced. And I mean, that's one thing what happens when you ban 4 picks from Gabe The Chiron gets banned. Obviously Hachimon's picked up. The mid lane pool kind of, it goes down for both players, right? And they had an opportunity that is the Kins with Mittens to take, potentially a Thoth, potentially an Agni in mid 4 claw instead of this Sobek, which hadn't been prioed by Digits, uh, Scapesto the game before. So prioing the Sobek with the Sawilix felt a little bit unnecessary. I felt like you could have taken, say, Daji plus, a Thoth right there, or Sobek and a Thoth right there. It just felt like either the Sobek or the Sawilix probably didn't need to get picked at the time it did.
Yeah, the engage for this KWM draft seems very one note. It is just Sobek into a real exalt. That is the
That's it.
entire
Yeah.
engage. Achilles outside of maybe going for that blink. We'll have to keep an eye on it.
And
But
that's just
even
so
then,
scary into Gabe, though. Like, you don't
yeah,
even want to do that if you're Deathfang because he probably wants to build
agreed.
some damage. And how does he do that into that comp? Now, obviously, he can go Fizz defense and then, build some damage because it is a quad Fizz comp. But, this Artemis, like, Artemis is really good into Achilles. You're just not getting that mobility. You're not getting that movement. I
Yeah,
think Gabe, with how Lucy played a game two, is going to just have a field day on this Artemis pick.
Yeah, the trap so deadly for that Achilles, and of course the ultimate for Artemis. Always the highlight of that kit is so impactful in the middle of team fights, especially late game around objectives. Tusky goes out, it hits 3, 4 people, and I was just playing some Artemis mid the other day. That
Hmm.
ultimate hits for like a
It does a
thousand
lot.
late game
No, I know
with
that Bluestone
Bluestone and
build's incredible.
Heartseeker and Crusher. It does a lot of damage at full build. I mean, a more or less guaranteed 1,000 damage 5-man ult is not a joke late game.
No, and absolutely. And I mean, I don't think you'll see it get maybe 5 man ults, but it's a zoning tool too. I mean, how does Kano go in if Gabe just ults when Deathfang goes in, let's say, or when Scapesto goes in, Kano's just sort of stuck. Like he doesn't really want to go in, you know what I mean? It's just sort of like this impending damage that you're gonna take if you walk in. So he's effectively gonna be zoned. And listen, I mean, Kano went Aegis 2 games in a row. Is he really gonna decide this is the time I go Blink into a Thor Artemis on her? Again, like you might feel like you need to go Blink, but I feel like he just might not.
Yeah, and if he does opt for that Aegis, which he might need, I agree with you
Mhm.
here, then you're really reliant on
Really
your
limited.
you don't
Yeah,
have Wheelix knockups. Like, I mean,
yeah. It's
you
it's
definitely
scary.
could, but
Yeah,
it is.
everything is on Scapesto this game to make things happen in these team fights. Now, obviously, again, Kins and Mittens both game one and game two had a supreme advantage in the early game. If they can, kind of work with that, use claws, set secures, we might not even be worried about those true team fight situations. Assuming Kittens can, execute how as well as they have been in these first 2 games in the early game. Notice that Scapesto is rushing this breastplate on the Sobek. I would like to see him do what Storm did not do in game one and go straight into a sovereignty, into a relic dagger. Don't even worry about the thieves, just prioritize getting this Fizz defense and anti-auto attack as quick as possible. So we'll see if he decides to do that.
Yeah, Kepri, not a character that's going to do relevant magical damage ever, and also
Yeah,
not a character that's not a character that should be building Mystical Mail. I guess we'll
yeah.
have to see, but don't expect to see a Mystical Mail Kepri come out anytime soon. Interestingly, in the mid lane, it is a Vamp Shroud.
It's the
Or
pluck
Claw
horrific
on a
right away. Ooh.
ESET going on this lifesteal focused build for ESET. Something you see a little bit. A lot of the lifesteal characters aren't particularly popular in mid right now, but with no mage, again, getting the anti-heal is going to be hard. Danger, looking for a little bit of something in mid, but not level 3. No wall, going to be pretty safe here.
Yeah, I almost was about to say Danger might look for a wall here, but there's no way he would have gone as well at level 2. So, this mid fight is going to be interesting. Obviously, Wheelix and set are really good early, but anytime you have a Hunter in mid, you have a chance to fight. So Gabe's clear is going to be a little bit worse right now in this early game, but I think once you see these people as Danger gets a little bit antsy with his hammer throw, a lot of action in this 2v2. We saw Scapesto kind of throw away his horrific a little bit earlier, but we will probably see the crew back up a bit as the Sawilish begins to rotate over to the duo side. And I really like that Danger is probably again going to go to solo and help clutch out as he did game 2.
Yeah, I like this matchup. You know that the best player, but actually take this out. A great pluck from the Scapesso going to find first blood. Does fall onto the Sobek. Probably not the person you wanted it on, but first blood nonetheless over in the duo lane. The horrific was used by Storm there, but not enough. And a nice early momentum trade for the Kittens with Mittens over in duo.
It almost looked like Storm was like kind of baiting Scapesso to pluck in, and then he would just get pulled right after and get the kill. Again, we can't be sure, but I would have imagined that Storm's pluck was up, and he could have just plucked, out initially before any damage happened to him. But it just sort of seemed like he was playing with fire a little bit, kind of unnecessarily. We do see Danger at the very least get a back camps invade, so he has a little bit of a lead in the jungle, but with not too much mana remaining, wanting to just get a back, not really having pressure in that solo lane. Garrett gets plucked, a little bit of damage onto him, a lot of damage onto him. There won't be any blue buff invade kind of in retaliation. So the Sobek, to its credit, looks fantastic so far.
Yes, Besso feels like has not missed a pluck over in that lane. Storm already down to a quarter HP in this lane with no pops available either. Going to get picked out, but Kano gets the pick onto Gabe Ethan. That is the one downside of this Artemis mid. It is very immobile, but more fighting in the duel, and Besso locked in with the entirety of the crew will get locked down. Looks like the crew were able to get the buff there as well. Went on to Storm, but still, you secured it. Get the kill. An overall victory. Clutch time is back camps. And red buff invade action all around the map. They want this. Gabe.
Oh, they did secure it. Gabe is 5 now.
And now the Thor ult coming in. The speeds are good from Claw. The wall just off the mark, but there should be enough damage, and there is enough damage. Like, fighting all across the map. As we recap all of this, purple buff invaded, red buff invaded.
There's a blue buff invaded there.
Mid laner falls down, blue buff invaded. I think this is a net victory for KWM.
I think it is a little bit, but at the same time, KWM had such a good situation after getting that first pick in the dual lane, and Scapesso had so much of an advantage. We saw this on the Bacchus game last game, where he had such a big lead onto Storm, and then just kind of has a silly death from overextending, and it kind of gave the crew some momentum back. Now, obviously, we don't see that just yet, but the death is potentially foreshadowing of some troubling picks to come. It's really, really important there. Gabe does secure that red buff, manages to let him and Danger hit level 5, which secures that kill onto Claw and forces the beat. Now, Gabe does have ult right now. He could look for a play onto Claw. Looks like he won't do it just yet. But this ESET is in a lot of risk just walking up, even as he just did.
Yeah, Claw doesn't have those beads available. Don't think Gabe thought he had enough damage at this point in the game. Didn't have that Transcendence online quite yet. The Bluestone Artemis does need a little bit of time to scale, but eventually those threes start hitting so hard. I love how Danger has played at this early game, realizing that the only character on the map that can get over his wall easily is that Awilix. So punishing Scapesso for walking into those buffs. Last game on the Bacchus was able to jump over the walls.
Get a lot of damage on him. Maybe not, we'll see.
Huckby comes out, the circle of protection is good. Gabe takes a lot of damage from it. Goodness, Claw trying to fight here against Danger. The knockup is good. He's forced out before going to ult.
Close.
Will he up down for the kill? He will, but he misses. And the pluck back into tower is good. The idea from Danger is, I think, okay there, but you've gotta make sure you hit the ult. I think was trying to stay out of tower, but you just gotta commit to getting the kill and dying if you are going back in there. Tries to halfway it and doesn't get it. The pluck is good again from Gabe. Claw way too low to do anything to help here. Sobek ult goes down for free. And teams are coming out fighting this game.
Absolutely.
Invade here from Kano. And will he be able to secure this? Danger is here. Does he want to use Feather Step to secure? He doesn't. Uses it on Danger. Could be in a little trouble, but Digits comes through and helps him out, defended by the crew. We are fighting 24/7 this game, and I love it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of action going on. Claw's build, honestly, is the thing that saved him, as he did left mids before backing, so he really overstayed. But this Soul Gem, giving just a little bit of health. I think it's 100 as he's going into what's likely a breastplate here. So this E set, by all accounts, is kind of building supportive in this mid lane, which, I think does complement the character pretty well. Getting a lot of cooldown with this soul gem into this breastplate, that will get finished kind of soon. So E set, so far has looked good. I hated that danger ultimate there. You did mention it's an okay play if he hits it, but you're just inviting so much risk for potentially so little payoff, and unfortunately danger doesn't hit it. And all of a sudden, 7 minutes on the dot, it seems like this has happened literally game 1 and game 2. There's a 2k lead for Kittens with Mittens, but the difference maker in this game, as opposed to game 2, is that they have very, very good objective and buff secure with Claw on this E set.
Yeah, though, as he starts to build a little more, hybrid here, that secure gets a little bit worse. Easted ult is still always good, though. He is in trouble in the mid lane. Thoro off the mark again, and the Artemis ult not going to be used quite yet, standing in that circle of protection, so he is still in a lot of trouble. Digits on his way. The beads are good from Claw. Works out Tusky. The silence is good as well. Could be Gate Ethan falling, so he gets the Kepri res. Claw goes down at the end, but so does the Artemis. Storm could be next on the block. It is going to be next on the block. The hammer barely gets him out in time. There is a 2-for-1 for KWM. Thor ults just aren't landing right now.
And, you think about how good that fight is if it does land. This deficit is now 3,000, and with Garrett not having the most pressure in the duo lane, danger coming off of a reset, this gold fury is definitely possible. Now Garrett can still contest this, and I'm very happy that he is walking up to at least try, but Garrett using his impale out of mana right now. Good peel by danger, does force them off of the gold fury, but danger's in a lot of trouble here potentially.
Hachiman takes the horse in and picks up the kill on the Garrett. Danger low as well. The wall off the mark again. Danger having some trouble finding the abilities on this pick. It does stop the Gold Fury, so Garrett can feel good about that, but will put him behind in this lane, as it feels like we've seen every single game. Garrett just falling behind in this lane regardless of matchup.
Yeah, and this is difficult. I mean, Garrett had done really well this game, in a losing dual lane effort. Finally, ultimate connects, and Claw should fall down here, living for just a little bit longer. Danger, I believe that he did use the Thor beads there, so kind of almost a frustration beads to just sort of, secure a kill that was evading him a little bit. I love how aggressive Danger's been this game, but yeah, we need to see that happen more. We just need to see our ults connect a bit more. Obviously, you can't always account for mechanical misplays, but ultimately, like, this deficit is on these missed Thor ultimates right now.
What I do like, though, is that he's missed it in mid a couple times already, and what does he do? As soon as it's up, he sends another one.
Yeah.
The famous MJ quote of, I'd rather go 0-37 than 0-9 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Keep shooting. And I love it, and this E-set is a pick ability that is part of the reason you pick this Artemis, and it forces beats pressure into something like an E-set that doesn't have a great answer. It does have the breastplate online, but I feel like they should still be able to kill even through the breastplate. Just might take a little bit longer than they wanted to.
But one thing that's been scary, we haven't mentioned it at all this game. Solo, just like in game 1, Deathfang has a almost 1,500 gold lead, which, we saw a couple of rotations from Kano in the early game to secure some blue buffs, but that kind of a passive lead is really, really terrifying, as Danger's off the mark again. Tricky, not enough damage to kill Garrett here, so will be a disengage, but man, we need to see those a little bit more consistent again. I'm very happy that Danger's looking for these plays, but so many opportunities that are almost plays back for the crew to get caught up again. But with Solo Lane kind of aggressively losing, you're on a bit of a time bomb. 4k lead now, 4k into the ends.
What's more concerning to me there is that not even the missed ult, it's Danger not realizing he can wall off that Hachiman ult. He was still behind the Hachi there. I feel like he could have had a pretty easy wall to stop that ultimate and maybe still pick up the kill. I don't know if it's just, the wall wasn't available for some reason or just not as comfortable in the matchup, but that's concerning for me if my Thor doesn't at least go for that play. Even if you don't get it, I feel like the Hachi could have still been in trouble there.
It absolutely is concerning, and Kano is level 13 right now. So second relic not available yet just because he hasn't reset. As a pluck pull goes onto Storm, and he might just be dead here.
Is the Scarab's Blessing goes on to Danger. Yeah, excuse me,
Yeah.
Danger instead of onto himself. Will fall down there and straight to the Gold Fury go KWM. They do have the Circle of Protection. The Artemis knows but walked over a ward. The zone go Thor into the air but has almost no mana here. The drop doesn't quite come out. Circle of Protection drops awkwardly, but Danger has no mana in the middle of 4. Will undoubtedly fall down here. But Circle of Protection used preemptively there. I guess concerned that the crew were going to try and all in the Gold Fury off of that. Spirit Ball is good on the game. That is a lot of damage for a hybrid E-set.
Definitely is.
Half
Yeah, and
health in game.
And you're feeling okay. There's been a couple of times this game where they've gotten off the Gold Fury just to get picks, but they're not losing anything in this lead. This is the biggest lead of the set, at this point in the game. 6,500 right now. Definitely kind of a really disappointing flat look from the crew in this game 3 when, early game was the issue. Game 1 and game 2, you would have hoped at least they would have found some type of way because, in the draft, they did do a good job at trying to address it, but once again, I think Kittens and Mittens are just showing that they're just the superior early game team for the 3rd game in a row. And again, I'm really worried about, potential opportunities back into this game because this team looks focused. Claw's doing a really good job of just making sure to get off of these objectives, not letting the team 50-50 and flip these objectives and just looking for the fight instead of looking to secure.
Yeah, XP differentials is starting to be a little scary. Again, 3 levels for Tricky in this duo lane. Feels like every game, Garrett down 1 or 2 levels, Thor into the air. I think, not into the air, Sound Cue's deceiving me there. Cold Fury going to be picked back up with the
There's
Circle
just no
of
contest
Protection.
here.
Nobody wants anything to do with this. They rotated Super Mustang over. I do like HD Clinton staying and give up. You know you're not testing it through Circle of Protection, so get some farm, get those neutral camps, and try and make yourself relevant like you were last game in the league.
And I mean, I talked about in game 1 when Kittens had this quad physical comp, how limited a comp like that could be. This match, it's the flip side. The crew is the quad physical comp. Look at Death's Fang build. He is under no pressure this game. Scapesto, instead of going Sirens, he goes this mid-guardian mail with the breastplate and anti-auto attack breastplate, as they will just secure this Pyromancer. And Super Death Fang is literally just fighting down Gabe. Won't be able to kill most likely here and will not,
Ooh,
but
close.
he has no fear right now. He can just walk there and how much damage did he take? 300 maybe?
Not
that he
enough.
healed? Yeah, that he healed, exactly, right? So it's really difficult, and Claw going this healing kind of defense build, 0 anti-heal from the crew's draft, obviously in their characters, and Danger doesn't really want to rush a Brawlers right here. He probably feels forced to, decides to get this tier 1, what likely will be a Heart Seeker. There's not going to be any anti-heal on this crew draft in terms of building for another 5 minutes minimum.
Yeah, just a horrific for anti-heal. I mean, you'll have that Inventive Executioner eventually, but Garrett being down in that lane, do you really want to rush that glyph
Definitely
and slow down
not,
your build?
yeah.
Not really, exactly. And the Pluck's here good on the Gabe. This is a 3v2, now a 3v3. Gabe getting absolutely nuked, but the
Great
Scarab's
ult.
Blessing is good. Kano jumping in, Gabe forcing the relics, trying to live here. The Thor ult doesn't find much again, and now Danger might pay for it. No Scarab's Blessing, the root not good from the Capri, and it is a triple kill for Kano in the mid lane. It is falling apart at the base, down nearly 9k. The buffs are getting invaded, and I imagine Tricky's gonna come over and hit this gold fire giant sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely enamored with this wheelish pick at the beginning, during this drafting phase, but top of the damage right now at 10,000, 16 minutes in, 100% kill participation. You never see that out of junglers at any level of play, so this has just been like a clinical performance. 6 level lead now in the jungle, dwarfs any advantage in anybody else. 8 levels up on Storm, obviously, as well, so Swilix is completely unchecked, and honestly, like, a lot of it really shouldn't have happened. I think we saw a lot of, again, missed Thor ults. We saw duo lane struggle a little bit too hard. Scapesto really was able to facilitate a lot of early game aggression, and then Clutch sort of just passively losing over in solo. kind of just had anywhere he wanted to go was just guaranteed to be a win. Even mid, which we were a little bit, potentially concerned about, Claw's done a great job of living for the most part. Obviously, 03 doesn't look too glamorous, but had some of those earlier ults connected, he probably would have been 05, 06. So still, 03 feeling okay, and this Wilkes has really just kind of taken over the lobby.
If you're 0-3 up 3 levels,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't think
feeling
you can. I
okay.
don't think you care that you're 0-3 exactly.
Definitely not.
Especially when your jungler's 7-0-4 up 5 levels, and it might be 8-0-4 pretty soon. The beads are
Almost.
good for Garrett, almost not in time. He is still hunting digits. Finally misses a pluck. He's human. The throwback ult. Garrett just getting ran down. Scarab's blessing is procced by the Sobek ult, and the Artemis ult forced out by Super Deathfang as well, but he has 4 physical defense items. Who's going to do damage to him?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Deathfang got ulted there. He took 100 damage, maybe. I like not even enough for his health bars to even look like it went down. He's just able to make so much space, and I think the most concerning thing is he's triple goose egged right now. He really hasn't had the biggest impact in these fights because he hasn't had to, and now he's finally rotating danger. Another Thorol off the mark, but there's just not enough damage here.
Yeah, and 2 falling down in mid tier 2 under siege will go down here. Not too much the crew can do about it. Garrett trying to return some damage, but that Super Death, he's pulled into 3 members and taking absolutely no damage. All of that damage was from tower, it felt like. As this Achilles is so tanky, you don't have enough damage. Your mid laner's down 4 levels, ADC down 2, jungler down 6 levels. I
Yeah.
mean, you need a miracle throw here for the crew to come back.
Absolutely, and I don't think they were super happy about game 2, and it's definitely showing here. I'm not sure they're going to give that throw opportunity again like they just did the previous game. Claw's going into Rejuvenated Heart here, I think, so he's just building a lot of healing and lifesteal. The item did get buffed. Not entirely sure how good it is, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if this game is the best game to give an honest take on it. When you're up this far, I think just about anything you build is going to look pretty good. And, in gauges, we saw Danger miss another Thorol right there, but even if he hit it, that fight is not changing. He does an
No,
extra 300 damage and he dies anyways. So
yeah.
there's not really a great opportunity here besides the crew, tries to utilize their double hunter, maybe split the map a little bit, try to I don't even think you can test fire because you're just not going to secure it or steal it. And then, hope for the best on a defense, but this game is just been I think Kittens, game 1, they showed that they were just the better team in a lot of effects. Game 2, it almost kind of convinced us, and then game 3, they're really trying to, make that known.
Fire Giant getting pulled here by KJM. Doesn't look like the crew is all too excited about stepping up to this. Don't blame them. Super Deathfang doing a nice job zoning away the Thor and the Nike. Everyone else just trying to get some farm here and will knock down a tier 1 over the goal lane. At least get something back for the crew, but this tier 2 and right is in a lot of danger, and I think this Phoenix is in just as much danger. ESET ult was used, so a little bit less utility available for the siege, but with both carries from the crew pushing, trying to get farm, this Phoenix going to go down quickly. Danger, obliterated. Storm finds another NHD clutch, goes down, double kill for the Achilles. And that should just be the game. The level 16 Artemis, I don't think is going to be able to repel this. They are finally backing here, but going to need a miracle. Titan is getting shredded. Tusky comes out. The beads are still available for nearly everybody. And Titan will go down. A 2-1 victory for KWM to finish off the set.
Yeah, an absolute heartbreaker for, I think what we were all hoping and maybe expecting to see a very competitive close game 3 ends up just being Kittens and Mittens drafting, a very aggressive comp. Definitely some interesting picks with this Awilix, with this E set that I wasn't too sold on personally, and it looked fantastic. Awilix did finish the game with 100% KP, and so much early game. I think Kittens and Mittens, every single game, no matter the draft that they were in, just were the better team from minute 1 on. And, game 2, we saw the crew have some really good return plays, kind of caught the Kittens and Mittens slipping a little bit, and were able to bring it back. But this game, they just decided we're not going to make those mistakes again. We're not going to drop a lead, and it was just dominance in every single lane from minute one, and it never really got caught back up.
A great bounce back game from Xcano specifically. Had a little bit of a rough game too on this. Osano looked lights out on this Wheelix 8-0 and 8 top damage in the lobby, getting it done. The Sobek doing Sobek things. Really a nicely played game by all of KWM. Crew gotta figure out the early game for the next few weeks. Their season's far from over. 1 and 2
Mhm.
still have 4 more weeks to play. Just gotta figure out those early games.
Definitely, because their fights looked good. Even that game, and it was kind of, hard to say, but their fights look fine. It just when you're down that far, it doesn't matter how you play them, you're just gonna lose them. Um, I think I wish we could have seen a Gabe Thoth performance this game just to see how maybe that would have combated the secure, from this Kings of Mittens draft and, given them a bit of a better opportunity maybe to hit that late game. But, ultimately, yeah, you have to figure out the early game if you want to be, contending teams. So that's kind of the A1 priority.
Absolutely. I think that's gonna wrap it up for us here between in this Athens matchup. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. with Wailing Banshees versus Skog's Sparta Division. Two undefeated Sparta teams clashing. Will be played tonight. Get it broadcast tomorrow. Join Anthony Kingfisher and its cat on that cast tomorrow. Should be a fantastic production and cast. We thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you all tomorrow. Have a great week, everyone.